Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Retro Reboot, brought to you by the GDQ Hotfix. I'm Zoe Vermillion. I'll be your host and showrunner tonight. We've got two great runs for you. We've got Ocarina of Time All Dungeons and Ocarina of Time 3D All Dungeons. But before we get into the action, I just have a couple of quick announcements. Treefort After Dark, it's going to be tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be one of our special weekend events, so you're definitely going to want to tune in and see that. Game submissions are open for Summer Games Done Quick 2020, as well as volunteer applications for the same event. You can visit gamesdonequick.com for more information on both. And Hotfix is funded in part thanks to your subscriptions, so please consider subscribing to support our future broadcasts. But with my announcements out of the way, I am going to pass the mic over to our runner, Danny B, 21892, and his lovely commentary team. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Danny. Commentary, why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Hey,
Hello, I am
ZFG.
Tatsu.
And we got one more.
Hi, I am Seedborn.
In case you guys didn't hear it, that's Datso and ZFG and Seedborn. Gonna be my virtual couch. I guess we'll jump right into the run and then we'll talk a little bit about it. So GDQ is ready on the timer. We will start in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so welcome everybody to Ocarina of Time All Dungeons, which is a category that is completely popping off with route changes. The route that you are going to see me do today is not going to survive very long. In fact, it's already outdated, but the new one isn't quite ready yet, and neither is anyone ready to showcase it. So this is what you're going to get today. So
Nice little farewell to this route.
yeah, so for anyone who hasn't been paying attention to Ocarina of Time lately, it's not just All Dungeons that has been going crazy, but it has been basically the whole game, except for, glitchless, which is chilling on its own. But back in October, a glitch was discovered that we call SRM, or Stale Reference Manipulation, which basically allows us to edit data that allows us to do all kinds of crazy things. It actually led to arbitrary code execution, which is a glitch that can basically do anything that you want, literally. You can write your own code into the game, and you can execute it, and as long as that code fits into, 8 megabytes, 4 megabytes, you can just do anything. We won't be showing that off in All Dungeons today, because if you allow arbitrary code execution in a category that isn't like any percent, it just kind of trivializes the whole point of the fact that there's a different category, because you can just tell the game to complete the goals for you. So with that said, I guess we'll talk about what the goal is for All Dungeons. Excuse me. The name is a little bit self-explanatory, I guess. We got to complete all the dungeons, and then we do have to complete the game after that. A lot of people ask, what counts as a dungeon in this game, because there are some mini dungeons. The only things that we're going to be completing are dungeons that have a blue warp at the end, which is that blue ring of light that takes you away into a cutscene. There are 8 of them. There are 3 child dungeons: Deca Tree, Dodongo's Cavern, and Jabu's Belly, and then the 5 adult main dungeons that give you medallions, which are Forest, Fire, Water, Spirit, and Shadow. So once we complete all 8 of those, definitely not in that order, we will proceed to the end of the game, which, I don't know. I guess I'll leave that to be a surprise, in case people don't know. And then after this run, we're actually going to give a little bit of a demo of what is yet to come in All Dungeons, because, as I mentioned, this route is already obsolete. But this route is about 10 minutes faster than the route that was around before we discovered SRM. So the record before this route existed was 1:16:57, something like that, high 1:16 by Zudu. And now the record is 1:08:05 by me. And even that could go much lower. Didn't get enough time to optimize this route because it only existed for a little while. So it's going to start off pretty standard. Just going to get some rupees, get a sword and shield, and then we'll be on our way.
General movement, you're going to see a lot of backwalking and side hopping, generally the fastest forms of movement, until we get some items later on. Side hopping is technically a little bit faster than backwalking, but only if you do it perfectly. So in general, backwalking is preferred, and then side hops for like if you need to turn quickly, such as going through this little area here.
Yeah, Danny's going to be doing a pretty standard start to the run, where he's going to get Sword and Shield, and that will let him escape Kokiri Forest.
But doesn't that skip a dungeon?
It does. Skips the Deca tree, but... Oops.
I'm sure you'll be back later, right?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we're not going to be doing these dungeons in any particular order. Well, some particular order, but not one that you might expect. It's definitely not fast to do these dungeons in the order that you might expect. Also, please excuse some timing issues, because I just came from N64 running any percent for like a month, and there's some lag on N64, and it kind of screws with your muscle memory a little bit.
Oh boy.
But I practiced some movement. I think we should be okay. This run was a little bit on short notice, to be honest. I didn't know I was going to do this until Tuesday. I had been running any percent for about a month before this. So, but we should be okay.
Yeah, VC has one frame, that's one 20 FPS frame of lag over N64. So some things that Danny might be used to from any percent are just a little different.
All right, glad we got that. That's probably something to talk about. That was called West Escape, and there was kind of a lot happening there. So the first thing that I did, as soon as I exited the shop, I did a jump slash to give me some passive momentum. And when Link has momentum and he exits water, you can hold a precise area on the control stick we like to call ESS, which stands for Extended Super Slide. Those of you who know the game, I'm sure you're very familiar. But basically, if you hold the control stick in the range that causes Link, when he's just standing still, to rotate in place without actually walking, you can preserve whatever passive speed you had in some scenarios. And coming out of water is one of those scenarios. And so we can get some speed. And then with some precise steering, and then with a little clip through the guy at the end, we can make it all the way through and escape the forest early with nothing but a sword, really. So the reason why I got Sword and Shield is because I'm going to be using them in order to collect some bomb shoes, which is coming up in a little bit. And bomb shoes are going to be really important because a lot of glitches in this game rely on explosives. And
explosives, bombs, and bomb shoes are like pretty much one of the most important things in the game. They let you do so many different glitches, let you go fast, let you skip so much stuff. They're almost always like one of the things you want to get right away first thing.
There's another thing that we want to get right away first thing usually, and that would be a bottle. And we're going to be getting that too pretty soon. Round up some good old cocos.
Yeah, as much as explosives and a shield are extremely useful in this game for movement, for general glitching and breaking the game in general, bottle is quite important.
I'll give you guys a little background about me. The last time that I was on this channel was 2016. I did a glitchless run for GDQ in 2016. 1 second, focus on this. All right, another little west there. That allowed us to skip the owl, because when you are in an extended super slide, owls can't talk to you. Yeah, so I started off with this game. I ran glitchless for like 2 years straight, built some movement fundamentals, and got pretty good at the game through glitchless, and then decided to branch out into some glitchless or some glitch categories, and I've been doing pretty well in those. Currently, my focus was any percent for the last month or so. Pushed the record down a few times myself. Currently second place in any percent, and I'm hoping I can snag that record back before coming back to all dungeons and working out some new route stuff. But I like to play mostly any category that this game has to offer. Try to be as well-rounded as possible. I find switching between lots of categories every few months kind of like, it just keeps it really fresh, and you know, you can play the same game for like 5 years straight, and it almost feels like a new game anytime that you switch categories or anytime a new glitch is discovered. So
yeah, that's one of the coolest things about running this game, is that there's so much variety of what you can run. Like, there's short categories with, like, you know, a few big glitches. There's long categories with like tons of stuff, tons of glitches, and tons of things to learn, and new things get found all the time. And it's hard to get bored of this game because there's just so much to do, and new stuff gets found all the time.
I'm excited to run 100% at some point, whenever it settles down. But
Same.
who the heck knows when that's gonna be?
I sure would love to as well.
And Danny, weren't you at some point top 10 or even top 5 in all of the main categories? I know you were doing your thing.
Yeah, not simultaneously, but one of the first things that I tried to do when I finished running Glitchless was pose a challenge to myself to see if I could get top 10 in every category. And I have held a top 10 position in every single category at some point, but not simultaneously, because it's so hard to be good at everything in the same time frame, because by the time that you come back to something, like, other people have also gotten good. So, but yeah, I try to keep myself well-rounded. So we got a bottle, and then we're gonna use Navi, who isn't useless after all, to fall through some water there. When you're in a text box, Link kind of ignores water. All right, bottom of the well is a little tricky. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, bottom of the well is a little bit tricky. There's one glitch here that, honestly, pretty high chance I fail it, because it's a high-risk glitch, and it doesn't save too much time, but worst case scenario, we just lose some time. And I'll call it out when I attempt it.
Yeah, so right now we're about to do a similar trick that we did to get into bottom of the well, but this time with an ocarina. So we're just hovering on the edge of this hole, and then we use the ocarina to fall, hopefully. There we go. And because you're in the ocarina state, it ignores a loading plane. And so now we're in the basement, and it's completely unloaded.
And this also means that the water is still there. So water in this game extends downwards infinitely. And in bottom of the well, there's like shallow water that goes all around the main room. But even that shallow water keeps extending downwards, so we can swim in it, swim up the water, and actually clip through the ceiling in the basement, which lets him get to that room early and get bomb cheese early. And he can use those bomb trees to immediately clip through the wall there by grabbing the vines and getting hit on the same time you re-grab the vines. You can clip through the wall, so he can go back in the out-of-bounds water. And now he's trying to swim over to this room over here, hopefully avoid the like. Oh,
Yeah,
dang.
That's the tricky part right there. You have like a very narrow window to clip into that cage with the like, otherwise you'll pop back out. The only thing I was doing that for was to get a Hylian shield, but like I said, worst case scenario, we'll just lose some time, and I'll be able to purchase a Hylian shield in the market, so not a terrible thing. I like it a lot better when you come from the other side, but you don't have enough time to swim underneath the like with that strat. Dang. All right, so the thing I just tried to do there was called a Hess Hyper Extended Super Slide, which is kind of like the Water Extended Super Slide we tried earlier, except you get it with damage, and then it happens to give you more speed. But failed a little bit.
Yeah, you'll probably be seeing that a lot this run. That's basically the fastest general movement you can do, like outside of very specific circumstances. So generally, the most preferred movement. So you'll see him rolling into bombs and getting a lot of speed out of it quite often through the run.
If I had gotten the Hylian shield from bottom of the well, I would just go straight into market and straight to Temple of Time and go to adult section. But because I didn't, I need to get these rupees from on top of the thing. So that might have looked pretty weird. Link just sort of teleported up there. And the reason for that is something called culling, which when something is off camera enough in this game, the N64 is just like, that's not important. So let's just suspend having to worry about it until it's back on camera. And so the drawbridge going up, I keep it off camera while it's going up, and that way the chains stay down until the next time I look at the drawbridge. And then when I look at it, the game's like, oh, the drawbridge is up, better put the chains up there. And if you're standing on the chains when that happens, Link just happens to follow. So it's a pretty convenient way to get into castle at nighttime. Not that I needed nighttime, really. I just needed the rupees.
Jump slashing into that market is hilarious because it's not a clip. There's literally just no collision over the door for some reason.
Yeah, you're just jumping over the wall.
So you may be wondering, this is called all dungeons. We have currently done 0 dungeons, and we're going to adult. Now, when I was a kid, there were 3 dungeons as child. What's up with that?
Yeah, Child Link, he's just kind of short. He doesn't have very good items. So we're just going to ignore them for now. Maybe we'll do them later. All right. We like Adult Link better.
Adult Link has the advantage of just generally moving faster than Child, so it helps to do dungeons as adult if you can.
Yeah, general rule of thumb is if you can do something as both child and adult, it's probably faster to do it as adult. He's got better items to use, like hookshot. You can climb higher ledges. Again, faster movement in general, so yeah. And so that does mean that all 8 dungeons that are required for this category are all going to be as adult. Child doesn't get any screen time.
Child got plenty of screen time right there. I think that was more than enough for Child 1.
I mean, I guess it technically is almost a quarter of the run.
True, yeah.
Arguably, you could say Child is the most important section because you become adult.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true.
5-head. So let me give you guys a little bit of a skeleton of the route that we're about to do here. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do a glitch called Reverse Bottle Adventure. And what that's going to do is put a bottle on our B button. And once a bottle is on our B button, we can do all kinds of crazy things. It allows us to write values directly into our inventory. And so what I'm going to use it for is we're going to get some bomb shoes right off the bat. I know I just got bomb shoes, but I'm greedy. I need a lot more bomb shoes. And once we have enough bomb shoes, we're going to go do our very first dungeon. That's going to be the Dongo's Cavern. And then we're going to go do the big glitch. We're going to do SRM. And we're going to do it in Goron City. And the glitch that we're going to do is called, or the instance of SRM that we're going to do is affectionately named Pot Chest, because we turn a pot kind of into a treasure chest. If you ask Fig, it's not a treasure chest, but
It'll look like it.
Yeah, it'll look like a treasure chest. We'll explain more.
Anything.
What's that?
It won't look like anything because it'll be invisible.
That's true. It will look like Link sees a treasure chest, though. Link's a really good mime. So we'll explain more about the SRM when we get there. Seaborn is kind of the head honcho of Goron City SRM. He figured out pretty much everything there is to figure out about it. So probably let him take over once we get there. And then we're going to do Spirit Temple, which is obviously right next to Goron City. And from there, we're gonna get a bunch of songs also from RBA, and then we'll just be able to teleport around the map, do the dungeons as fast as possible, and before you know it, we'll be at the end, and Ganon will be defeated, kinda.
Yeah, once the setup is done, the run's kind of like the early part of the run's kind of set up, and then the later part of the run is like actually kind of rushing through all the dungeons. Once the setup is done, it's just like dungeon after dungeon really quick.
And
So
the
I also
previous,
go ahead.
The previous version of this route before SRM was discovered kind of looked similar to this, in general, in that you set up for a while and then you did a bunch of dungeons, but that required doing the entire adult trade quest, which was not really regarded as, that much fun.
Yeah, it was kind of just walking back and forth between Kakariko and the Lost Woods, and yeah, it's just overworld movement. But
Catching some bugs.
yeah, the setup here is a lot more interesting with the introduction of SRM. All right, so we are trapped behind the Door of Time. Door of Time is closed. However, it's very convenient for speedrunning this game that we're actually not trapped at all. Because when you save warp, you end up on the other side of the Door of Time. If that was not true, then speedruns of this game would look super different.
Yep, you didn't see it there, but the door was still there. If Danny went through the tunnel there, the door would load and block him from leaving. So when you save and reset in the overworld as adult, you'll always reappear right here in Temple of Time, and as child, you'll always reappear in Link's house. And if you save in the dungeon, then you'll reappear in the dungeon.
And if you save in Link's house as adult, you'll appear in Link's house as adult.
Yeah, the one special case of saving. So yeah, we can kind of take advantage of those save warp properties to kind of move around the world quickly. Well, I guess this category doesn't quite take as much advantage of it as some other categories do.
So we're about to go into this grotto that we've never gone into before this run. And we're going to grab our friend. And our friend is a fish. And this fish is the most important fish in the entire world because it will allow us to get many, many things, including probably another fish.
Yeah, so this is what Danny was talking about earlier, reverse bottle adventure. So when you get a bottle on your B button, it can change values in your inventory based on the item you have on C right. And so the item Danny had on C right is empty bottle when he caught that fish. And that puts a new fish in his third bottle slot in the inventory. So next time Danny pauses, you will see Danny just has an extra bottle.
I don't have a sword though, and I needed to kill that Poe, so I just used some bomb shoes to kill him.
And then Poe also has a nice fun effect you'll see in just a second.
These are Hesses, by the way. I mentioned that in Kakariko Village as child I was failing it, but past two that I just did are good examples of that. Past three I just did. So like I said, Dodongo's Cavern, that's what we need to do. Watch my bomb tree count. I have 0. And now I do not have 0.
And that's the magic of RBA.
Yeah, just the same way that having the empty bottle on C right wrote into his inventory, having Poe there actually writes past the end of the inventory, and that's where ammo counts are.
Yeah, it's kind of insane, like how much of the inventory you can control with RBA. Like it kind of starts out, you just kind of put bottles over inventory slots, and then you go past that, and you can start modifying ammo amounts. You start going past that, you get to equipment. You go past that, and you get to songs, medallions, spiritual stones. You can do a lot of crazy stuff with it.
Go past that, you get scene flags.
Yeah. So they're a bit harder to reach.
Oops.
So yeah, that save warp at the beginning of the dungeon looked like it was just not there for any reason, but that was extremely important because at the end we're going to do a wrong warp, and the wrong warp we're about to do relies on the previous cutscene you watched being a specific value, otherwise the game will crash. And it just so happens the title screen works, so we just go to the title screen first.
And that bottle that Danny had on B became Deku Stick, which looks like a pretty weird change, but Deku Stick is just item value 0. And when you have something that's not a sword on B, it'll just become 0 after a save word.
So what Danny's trying to do right now is use C up to check this keys at the same time he lands on this switch. And this will let him gain control during the cutscene where that door is trying to open. So you can actually move to the door before it closes again, because that switch is supposed to be a switch you hold down with a block. And if you get off it, it closes again. But doing that trick, you can get to the door before it closes again and skip the little puzzle.
So
And
I
go
don't have
straight to the
bombs.
boss.
I don't have bombs, guys. I think
You
I
also
need
don't have
bombs.
strength.
You got something that goes boom though, right?
I do, kinda. How am I gonna throw it?
I mean, he likes
place
it.
it?
He'll find a way to eat it. Yeah, so if you're holding a bomb chew and that bomb chew goes anywhere near King Dodongo's mouth, he will eat it. Doesn't have to be bombs.
All right, I'm happy I got that because each of those backflips are 4 frames, so it's a little bit awkward. I don't have too much of a good cue for it aside from just King Dodongo's animation.
By the way, do you know about the ground jump strat?
Yes, but getting a ground jump is kind of annoying, isn't it?
It's pretty easy because you can you just go in the corner and when he rolls around, you hit your shield.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. It just makes the second one kind of free.
Yeah. All right, so there's a very high chance I fail this wrong warp. It's a very hard one. It also doesn't save very much time, so I'm not going to worry about it if I do.
Yeah, the hardest part of this wrong warp is all of the timing around it, because we need the chew to run and then explode in such a way that it kills us on the first frame that we touch the blue warp. But we also have to get OI, and all of the buffering in this room is completely terrible.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. I think I can still do it.
And unfortunately, the way that the fish moves there is just random, so Danny can't help if that happens.
I even took a step towards it.
Like Dotso mentioned, he has to get the Ocarina items trick, which is where he's able to play the Ocarina with a different item. In this case, he has Ocarina, but he can't use it because this is a boss
All right,
room.
this is actually not going to work because I took an extra step than I should have. So I'm just going to walk into the warp and watch the cutscene, which really isn't that slow. So basically what I was going to do was do a wrong warp to Gerudo Training Grounds. But Gerudo Training Grounds is not where I want to be. And I would have died in Gerudo Training Grounds, which would have sent me right back here. Except I wouldn't have had to watch this cutscene. But also, watching this cutscene as an adult is kind of funny anyway. So let's just pretend that this is what I wanted you to see. And the reason why that wrong warp is so difficult is, honestly, Seaborn, you may have just explained it, but I wasn't paying attention. Did you explain why this one is hard in particular?
No.
Okay. So the reason why this one is hard in particular is because of that I need to do a side hop to get Ocarina items. And to get Ocarina items, you need to press a bottle in midair, followed by the item that you want to play as an Ocarina. And that item needs to be fully in Link's hands by the time he lands. And all of those things take time, and side hops only last 7 frames. And so the timing for getting a side hop, and also pressing 2 buttons during the side hop before you land on the blue warp is actually really hard. You don't have very much time to make it work. So that's why that's hard. That's not why I just failed it, though. I failed it because of bad fish luck, to be quite honest. But yeah, this is one of those ones that you'd normally just reset on. It's not too far into the run. It saves 25 seconds if you get it perfectly, like one pausing all of the timing elements. If I had gotten it there, also nice broken legs, Link. If I had gotten it there, I honestly wouldn't have even saved time over having just gone into the warp from the beginning.
Yeah, in a lot of cases in OOT runs, wrong warps are something that's essential to the route. Like, it needs to take you somewhere, but like Danny said, he doesn't actually want to be in Gerudo Training Grounds. So as far as the route is concerned, it doesn't matter that he didn't get that wrong warp. It just would have saved time, but it doesn't affect anything.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing where there are some cases where you just want to skip the cutscene and you don't want a wrong warp, but depending on what dungeon you're doing it from, you will either always get a wrong warp or never get a wrong warp. And so when it's the cases where Dwango's Cavern, you're always going to wrong warp from if you try to load some other area. Then if you want to skip the cutscene, you have to also do the wrong warp, which in some cases is actually inconvenient.
So here we
All
are in
right,
Goron
so
City.
the place where everything happens, all the important stuff.
So what Danny is doing right now is he's talking to Darunia's son, and he needs to open up Darunia's room because he's going to need to do a super slide, which you will see in a minute or two. And he needs to slide off of a pot and then grab that pot after it has unloaded. And by
We're
doing
going to be
that,
taking a short excursion to Bolero first, but keep going.
oh yeah, that's right. We go and get Bolero. If all he needed was Bolero, he could just clip into Darunia's room and go into Death Mountain Crater. But he will need access to that load plane that's between the two rooms in here.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate we need to talk to this guy because the only reason we talk to him is to open a door, which we can get past. We just can't get past that door while also holding something, which is a really important part of the magic trick coming up soon.
The Goron Tunic is useful too, but we could have gotten it with the magic anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, so first it's going to be convenient for Danny to get the warp song here because it will be easy to get back later.
Yeah, and we don't like watching cutscenes. Cutscenes are slow, so we're just gonna touch it and then die, which is gonna skip the cutscene. But because you get the song on the very first frame the cutscene starts, we'll have the song.
Yeah, so that's a really neat way to do that cutscene skip, where you die from the timer at the same time you touch the cutscene trigger, and that's from the heat, from when you're in a heated place without Goron Tunic.
All right, here it comes. Let's not screw this up.
Take it away, Seaborn.
So everything that Danny is going to do from entering Goron City on is going to be designed to set up the way that things are loaded into memory in a specific way, and it's just so that the offsets between where different things are loaded line up in a favorable way, and I'll say what that means again later. But you see him dropping bomb shoes, dropping fish. That's also that when he enters Darunia's room here, the objects that are in Darunia's room load into certain spots in the game's memory. And again, he's going up these stairs to break some pots, again for memory reasons, and then he'll do the super slide. And a super slide is sort of like the Hesses that he was doing earlier, except he's going to be getting that speed while he's locked into the grabbing animation for this pot. And the nice thing about that is when he releases shield, Link will pick up the pot, but the pot has already unloaded. Because it was off camera, remember Danny talked about things that are off camera, the game sort of stops caring about. Because the pot was in that circumstance, Link is still able to grab, but what Link grabs isn't anything that exists. It's just something that points in code to where the pot used to be. And the offsets that Danny was engineering with that memory manipulation was such that when he later dropped Link's hands, he overwrote a function that pot was running, the new pot that loaded in the place. And you might see that the pot that should be there now is invisible, and that's because the function that pot is running to actually display on screen has been replaced with the function that a Goron uses to give Link an item. So instead of displaying on screen, that pot just gives Link items. And the item that we get, we can manipulate by loading other things, including bomb chews and the hookshot. And that's a repeatable process. So what you're seeing Danny do here each time is he's going to drop 2 bomb chews and then pull out the hookshot, and that puts the hookshot in such a place that when Danny shoots the hookshot, one of the coordinates in the hookshot tip will determine what item he gets. So he's doing a bunch of specific setups here to get into a known position that will correspond to certain items, and he's just going to fill up his inventory with this.
I accidentally only dropped 1 bomb chew there. That's why I got the same item twice in a row.
Yeah, so this is a pretty incredible glitch. You can get any regular inventory item. The only thing you can't get from this is medallions, songs, and spiritual stones. But like any of the regular items you equip, any equipment, you can all get that from this thing right here. And you can probably imagine how significant of a glitch that is. Because now items, after this point, items essentially don't matter. It's all about actually going to the dungeons and just beating them as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's basically turned into the sort of shopping spree where you just run through the store and grab everything off the shelves. Danny is just one after another getting all of the items that he's going to need to complete the speedrun, and then as soon as he's done with this, it's just going to be a dungeon rush. He's just going to knock out all the dungeons one after the other.
It's tricky to remember all of these setups for every individual item because a lot of them are very similar. I can't tell if them being similar helps or hurts.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Not long after I posted the video about this trick, the community created a spreadsheet with all of the different possible items you could get from this, and just went to town creating setups for how to get all of them, and just filled it out very quickly. A lot of them even having multiple different setups.
All right, so we got one more item to get after this one, and that one's special, and there's a reason why we saved it for last. You'll see why it's special in a moment. We got silver gauntlets. And so the game, just does what it does when you get silver gauntlets. Takes you here and plays the cutscene of Naru getting kidnapped. And that's like absolute absurd levels of convenience because Spirit Temple is really far away and it's always a pain to get here. A lot of routes just rely on like, what's the best way to get to Spirit Temple? And here we get it for free.
Yeah, in fact, that wrong warp Danny was trying to do earlier back at Dodongo's Cavern used to be generally the most convenient way to get to Spirit Temple because it gets you like halfway there, but it's not all the way, and you still have to go through a lot more stuff to actually get to Spirit Temple. This is like, you're not only right there at Spirit Temple, you're at the top right next to Mirror Shield. So you're getting Mirror Shield in a cool 20 seconds.
Yeah, I'm gonna go in and out of here because I'm a big baby. Just in case.
Yeah, so when you get Silver Gauntlets, it just always takes you to that cutscene. It's just a special property of getting Silver Gauntlets specifically.
Yeah, it's literally hard-coded into the function that gives you items. Like, if you get Silver Gauntlets, just warp you here.
The reason I went in and out of the wrong side of the hands is that if I were to fall down off the hands, I could die and then respawn back up there. Although, does that automatically happen with the cutscene entrance? I think it does, so it might have been useless.
Yeah, you would spawn up on the hands if you died. Yeah, so something, a weird side effect of all this RBA shenanigans we've been doing this whole time is we currently don't have a sword. So we're going to be using the hammer for a lot of things until we get our sword back.
It's not even that I don't have a sword on B. I literally don't have it in my inventory. It gets deleted. So we'll get it back later.
Yeah, luckily Hammer has the same damage output as Master Sword, except for some special cases, but for the most part, same damage output. So it's generally fine either way. Just takes up an extra equip though, which can add some pauses here and there, but not too bad.
It's funny because we have the bottle on B, and we're going to need that in a minute anyway. So it's just super convenient that we have like 4 items right now.
Yeah, and so now because of both warping up to the top of Spirit Temple and having the Mirror Shield, the majority of Spirit Temple is essentially already completed. Normally you're supposed to be here like as child, go through this huge section, come back as adult, go work your way up to Mirror Shield. Now that whole thing is skipped, and he just has to go straight to the boss room. Which normally would require a boss key, but even that isn't required because he's just in a clip out of bounds here. This is a pretty neat one actually. So he does a ledge clip by targeting the wall right as he grabs the ledge, which turns Link towards the wall as he grabs the ledge, which makes him clip out of bounds. Then by getting hit by that bomb, he lands on a little tiny piece of collision in between the rooms, and here he has just barely enough room to start a super slide.
So one more? Yeah.
And with the super slide, he can equip hover boots. They'll go really far back, really fast. Curve it around and hit the loading zone for the boss room.
Glad that one's out of the way. I don't like that trick.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough
It's
trick.
a hard one for sure.
It's also very costly to fail. Because if you miss and you like fall down, then you're in like the statue room below and it's unloaded. And you have to like do a weird shot to get underground and like void out so you can pop back all the way to the top. It's a mess if you fail that. Yeah, right.
Because you can't see anything. And one convenient thing to mention about the loading zones. So when you're in a dungeon or any map really, all collision is always loaded for a map, no matter what room you're in. So Spirit has a bunch of different rooms, and only one room is loaded at a time, but the collision for the entire dungeon is always loaded, and that includes any loading zones. So the boss loading zone is always going to be there no matter where you are in Spirit Temple. So if you can get out of the bounds and you can get to where the loading zone is, then you can do the whole thing. And that's how most boss key skips work. And for this fight, so Danny's not going to try to kill the Iron Knuckle immediately. Instead, he's going to lure the Iron Knuckle into the corner here. Drop this bomb and hookshot clip with the Iron Knuckle to get out of bounds. So that kills the Iron Knuckle while Danny's falling out of bounds, and he's going to void out, and that skips a whole cutscene.
Right. So now we got Twin Rova, which is kind of a really annoying boss for speedruns. It's an amazing boss for casual gameplay. You get to this boss and it's like so climactic. You gotta like shoot lasers back and forth. It's so cool. And then you do it in a speedrun and all you want is to just never see this boss again, because basically everything about this boss is random, and randomness is the enemy of going fast.
It's both randomness and waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, which parts of these do I like?
So there's some stuff we can do to manipulate how fast this goes. Like, I can shoot my hookshot in the direction of one of the witches in order to freeze her in place if I think that she's in a good position that I don't want her to move from. But aside from that, it's kind of just crossing your fingers. Like this.
Yeah, and if you get bad luck, you can lose like as much as 30 or 40 seconds. It can be really bad.
Yeah.
Just wait. You're literally just like waiting for them to dance around and eventually stop and shoot you. And sometimes they just don't want to shoot you, and that may sound nice, but it means you lose time.
Sometimes, though, they can be very nice and try to shoot you a lot.
That's great. I love when that happens.
Yeah, sometimes they can shoot from the same position repeatedly, and that saves a lot of time. Oh my goodness, this is terrifying.
And sometimes they're in terrible positions that make it very difficult.
Almost had a heart attack there.
Someone asks
Yeah.
what you're using the hookshot for.
Oh, yeah, I'm using the hookshot to just keep the witch in place, because she'll just spin around as long as you're aiming at one. So if I know that I'm going to be able to hit her from some position, then I'll just keep her there with hookshot.
And
Exact
Danny's also
opposite
gonna-
here. Oh, a double.
Yeah. Yeah, so the hookshot actually does save time on this one. This actually makes Twinrova move to the next platform faster. Wait, you can actually make her stay on the same platform?
Yep.
Yeah, if she
never
goes
done that.
opposite, she stays.
Oh my god, I've never
If you
seen
don't
that.
move.
Not every time, though. But the only way to get a double in the second phase like this when they're combined is if you're lucky enough for her to go opposite. And then it happens a pretty frequent amount of time. But if you just don't move from your initial position when she's opposite you. I don't know why that is. Fig actually just started looking into the Twinrova's code to figure out like how she works, how she decides when to shoot, when to move. And he didn't see anything related to Link or anything, so I don't know why that manipulation works, but it seems to.
Yeah, luckily on the second phase of Twinrova, as much as the first phase is a lot of randomness, the second phase is completely always the same. She'll always shoot the same element 3 times in a row, so long as she never takes damage.
Yeah, until you get to low health, but in a speed run, you should never have Twinrova at low health. You should always one cycle her. That leads to a pretty big misconception. Like a lot of people, when they see a speed run first time, they think, wait, how are they getting the same one every time? But yeah, it's always consistent when Twinrova's at full health and then random at lower health.
But yeah, so much like Bolero and the failed DC before it, we don't like watching cutscenes, so we're just gonna skip this one.
And unlike Dodongo's Cavern, this one will not cause a wrong warp. Since there's no cutscene that plays immediately after this, you just go to Chamber of Sages.
So Link's just gonna spin around dead. And after this, he'll get the medallion, but not have to watch the cutscene.
During Pot Chest, there was a lot going on. We didn't even mention that Danny did RBA during Pot Chest. And in particular, he got the Poacher's Saw from the Pot Chest and RBA'd it. And that is going to come into play a little later.
This will be our one use of Bolero. Did I just miss? What was I aiming at? Oh, the back wall. The long shot is so long that it tricked me.
Nice.
It's pretty funny because in most speedruns that aren't like glitchless or 100%, you would just never get the long shot because it's so deep into Water Temple, and Water Temple is a very fast dungeon to glitch through. And so long shot, just having that item here is like very strange, but also really, really nice. It's just so good. You can make everything faster with long shot. Just shoot things from further away. Also, Mito is the worst guy ever, dude. The worst. Thank you. He's short, but he's also really weirdly shaped, and so he likes to block you even when he shouldn't.
So now it looks like you're going to do Forest Temple, but that's not quite where we're going to end up.
So there's only one other useful thing around here, and that is Minuet.
Yeah, it turns out Forest Temple is blocked off by this cutscene where you learn Minuet of Forest. So he's going to need to clear that cutscene before he can actually get into Forest Temple.
Luckily, the trigger for this cutscene is absolutely enormous. So we can just hit it from like really low out of bounds.
I don't know if it's infinite up and down, but it just takes up like everything in that upper square of the map.
I think it goes all the way to the void plane, but not the world limit.
It's good heart.
And also that trick he did to get out of bounds was by getting on a ladder and getting hit off it. So like he was sort of on the ladder, but sort of not. And in that weird ladder state, you're able to walk up slippery slopes. So normally that slope he walked up, he would slip off it. But with that glitch, you can walk all the way to the top and just get out of bounds. And nice easy cutscene skip there.
I'm glad we're coming back to Deku after skipping it really a long time ago.
Gonna take the side entrance though.
Ooh,
Yeah, normally
somehow
when you're
dropped my house.
adult, you can't get into the Deku Tree because the Deku Tree has already died and the mouth is sealed off. So Danny's gonna have to find another way in.
So luckily the angle of the roots here is small enough to clip out of bounds. And with a nice hover boot test, you have enough speed to clip all the way to the loading zone and get into Deku Tree as adult.
Need some Deku Nuts. Let's see, what do I want here? I guess I want that. My equips are a little rusty because like it's hard to remember all the equips when you've only been playing a route for a few days.
It's the first thing to go. It's always equips first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do another save warp here, not because I need to go anywhere, but because some wrong warps, like the one I'm gonna be doing at the end of this dungeon, depend on the last cutscene you watched. And turns out the title screen is one of the kinds of cutscenes that can affect that value. So title screen is good for this one.
And as ZFG mentioned earlier, the entire Deku Tree's collision is loaded, including the load to Goma. So if we can just get out of bounds, we can go over there and skip all of the scrubs and webs and all the crazy, which is super convenient because we don't want to deal with scrubs.
Yep, and that's the whole Deku Tree.
And I have my sword back. All right. Where'd I get it? I got it from the save warp. For some reason, save warping gives you your sword back, but only after you do it twice on VC, or 1.2 rather.
And so the way he clipped out of bounds there was doing a mega flip onto the ground below. And if you have like a certain combination of like horizontal and vertical speed, you can clip through certain slopes. That one in particular with like sloped ground is actually kind of precise, but thankfully with the setup, it makes it pretty easy. But yeah, so that's how that mega flip got out of bounds and went straight to Goma.
All right, it's wrong warp time. Hopefully I get this one.
This is a really cool wrong warp if everything goes well.
It was important that Danny got the one cycle kill on Goma there because you need to kill her in her starting position in order for everything to be positioned correctly for this to work.
Yeah, the blue warp actually can spawn in a different place depending on where Goma dies. And it needs to be in this specific place.
We learned it's also not just where Goma dies, it's where Link kills her. Where Link is.
Oh, yeah. And so from here, Dan is going to try to clip out of bounds and void out at the same time that the game is trying to start the cutscene for getting the Cure Emerald.
Let's see.
He's going to throw the boomerang to position the camera in just the right way.
Very nice.
And
So,
this is
yeah, that's a true dungeon rush. We weren't kidding.
Yep.
There's Shadow Temple.
straight to Bongo Bongo.
So all dungeons doesn't actually mean all dungeons. It kind of just means all blue warps. We didn't have to touch Shadow Temple at all. Just the boss.
So while we're fighting Bongo, since it's pretty straightforward, you may have noticed he equipped a boomerang as a dole, which isn't a normal thing you can do, but a while ago we discovered that, I think Exodus discovered it, or rediscovered it actually, that if you highlight something on the menu and then scroll to a different screen and scroll back, and in one frame, which is actually 30 FPS, because the menu runs slightly faster than the game, that you can scroll to another item and equip the one you had selected before over that new slot. So currently we have the boomerang equipped over, I think, the Furor's Wind bottle. And then, not similarly, but another little equip glitch is because we wrong warped into this room, the C buttons are kind of in a weird state where they haven't truly updated to be a boss room. And so we can equip an ocarina, even though you normally can't do that, by just equipping it to a slot that is undimmed.
And then similar to the Spirit Temple cutscene skip, he's just gonna try to die at just the right time to get this, get the medallion and not have to watch the cutscene. Except where he goes after this death is actually gonna go back to Deku Tree instead, since because he wrong warped into Shadow Temple, it doesn't like truly update the last entrance, so it actually takes him back to Deku Tree. Not that it really matters, since he's gonna warp song away anyway.
Yeah, when Danny was doing Pot Chest earlier, and he got the Poacher Saw, which is part of the adult trade quest that we said we skip. I guess he's not playing Serenade yet. I'm jumping the gun on that one.
But yeah,
Serenade look too similar.
RBAing the Poacher Saw gives you warp songs. So I will be using those later.
Yeah, when he goes to Water Temple, the reason that he's going to be able to get there playing Minuet is because he got the Poacher Saw and did RBA with it during the Pot Chest segment.
Playing Serenade, but yeah.
So Forest Temple's a really long dungeon. You have to like go collect all these pos. You gotta get the bow. You gotta do some puzzles. Gotta get this elevator to pop back up. Go down to the basement. Solve another puzzle down there. It's a long one.
Sounds tedious. Maybe we should just skip all of it.
You know, that sounds like a good idea to me. Ah, no! Sorry, I just wanted to get that equipped in there.
That wasn't too long.
Yeah, you know, a little longer than it should have been.
I found a little shortcut.
All right, so Phantom Ganon. There's nothing really special going on with Phantom Ganon. I am gonna try to do one special thing though. Phantom Ganon, if you ever let Phantom Ganon escape from one of these paintings, he's gonna fly over to the center of the room and shoot a giant bolt of lightning, which then spreads out over the ground and deals 2 hearts of damage. Much like the other cutscene skips at the end of other dungeons, I'm gonna try to die here, but I have full health, and the only way for me to die right now would be to get down to all the way down to half a heart. So I'm gonna let Phantom Ganon help me out with that. Nice. So I shot him and he hit me. No time lost. Oh my goodness. We don't want any more of those lightning bolts, that's for sure.
So because Danny got ISG from the bomb there, his sword is constantly swinging, and that just means that when Phantom Ganon throws the projectile at him, it's going to be instantly reflected back. Danny doesn't have to worry about swinging his sword or anything. It also works for damaging Phantom Ganon afterwards.
Yeah, and the reason I was like spamming my hookshot at nothing there is because I can't do enough damage to kill Phantom Ganon in one cycle of him being on the ground there. So as soon as he gets up, he's in his flying state. And when he's flying around and you shoot a projectile at him, he spins his staff. And when he spins his staff to try to reflect whatever projectile, which includes the hookshot tip, he's actually vulnerable to sword attacks. So by spamming my hookshot, I can actually cause him to spin his staff the moment he gets up off the ground. And then because he's still kind of low, my ISG hits him again and knocks him right back down.
And also the reason he was facing away from Phantom Ganon was because the sword hitbox is actually, it does actually follow the sword. So when he puts the sword away, it actually is on Link's back. It's kind of like down and to the left. And yet another cutscene skip here. This one's a bit more precise than the Shadow and Spirit ones, because this actually requires a few frame perfect inputs to die on just the right frame. Where the Shadow and Spirit ones, you kind of do a certain movement and it kind of sets up the frames perfectly, but this one you actually have to make sure you do everything perfectly.
Alrighty, off to Water Temple. We're getting close to the end here. We don't have too much left. Done a lot of dungeons. What do we got left? We got Water Temple, we got Jabu Jabu, and we got Fire Temple.
Yes, we don't have iron boots. We could have gotten iron boots from the pot chest, but it's slow. So we're just gonna clip into the dungeon because that's super easy. And then because we have the long shot, a lot of the times in speedruns, you'll see people hess across the front of Water Temple to get to the boss. Turns out just using the long shot is like 4 seconds faster.
Yeah, a big reason for that is whenever you need to do a Hess and you want to like cross a big gap, you need hover boots. And generally you don't want to use hover boots for movement, so you have to like equip hover boots and then unequip hover boots, and that doesn't seem like that much, but it actually costs a lot of time to equip and unequip those just for like one specific trick. So yeah, with long shot already you can go straight to the room before the boss room, but he's blocked by a door. But those aren't too big of an issue. Just clip through.
Yeah, so basically what happened there is when you're hovering, which is something also to explain, the things you take for granted when you've been speedrunning a game for a while, it's crazy.
Yeah.
When you have ISG and you shield damage midair, Link sticks in midair and he just stays there. We call that hovering. And when you're hovering, gravity is still acting on Link and accelerating him downwards to his maximum fall speed of 20 units per frame. And so if I ever end that hover, which I can do by just pressing B to swing my sword, I immediately start falling at maximum fall speed. And when ZFG mentioned how I clipped in the Deca tree with that mega flip, it's a combination of fast lateral speed and fast downward speed. I get the fast downward speed from having built up that momentum in the hover, and I get some fast lateral speed from getting pushed by the bomb at the same time, and so I can make it through the bottom of the door that way.
Yeah, not all floors have that property, but there are some where having that downward speed essentially makes the floor push you. Is that correct?
Yeah. Some floors have that ground clippable property. And I actually just learned recently that you can tell if a floor has a ground clippable property by just dropping a bomb on it and walking into the bomb, and if you can push the bomb around with your feet, that means the floor is ground clippable.
I think you can also see it by dropping multiple bombs and seeing whether they separate or just stay stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, probably also because they're pushable.
Yeah.
So they can separate.
And that has more to do with the ground, not the walls, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's the ground.
All right, one more in the bag. Link's gonna be dizzy by the end of this run. He keeps spinning around a lot. Okay, we're in the home stretch. I'm just gonna save here real quick.
There's a lot of things coming up, so I guess we should start now. First thing that's going to happen is we need to get to the domain because we're going to do Jabu next. It's like the most convenient dungeon to get to. We have Bolero, but it's fine. We can go to fire whenever we want. So there's a big block of ice as adult. Also, the lake didn't fill because we skipped the cutscene, and it only happens during the cutscene. So this is super convenient. But we can do this ground clip thing again, although this time it's with a slope, so we actually don't need the property of the clippable ground, I think. And then during Pot Chest, we actually got the prescription. And we want the prescription because we're going to need a timer. And it just so happens the frog from the trade sequence has a timer. So that's also super convenient because it's also on the way to Jabu. The last thing we need is a ferry, which you'll see why in a minute. But remember, Seaborn had said earlier that during the Pot Chest segment, we RBA'd the Poacher Stall. That gave us 3 songs. We got Zelda's Lullaby, Serenade of Water, and Prelude of Light. We've already used Serenade, so it's time to use Zelda's Lullaby. And there's this really convenient Gossip Stone. So we're going to get our ferry here and then go to Jabu.
Sometimes that ferry can run into you, which is really annoying, so I'm glad it didn't.
And so,
So,
now Danny needs to go to Zora's Fountain, but King Zora is still blocking the way. You normally have to move King Zora as child, but since he's still there, he can clip out of bounds to get past him.
There's another weird thing I did with King Zora. While I work on this, you guys want to explain that? The unfreezing?
Yeah, when Danny got to Zora's domain, King Zora is supposed to be frozen. But by loading the room where King Zora is and having King Zora come onto screen while Danny was pulling out a trade item, it prevented the game from setting the flag that says that King Zora is supposed to be frozen, which normally gets set the first time that he gets loaded like that, or every time. And then when Danny reloads that room again, King Zora is there and not frozen.
Also, Jabu's still here.
Yeah, and then during that, Danny clipped into the ice because the loading zone for Jabu Jabu is still there when you're an adult, but normally the ice blocks it. But he had to clip into the ice and get upwards velocity because you can only hit that loading zone if you're moving upward. So he had to do some hover boot shenanigans there to be able to achieve that.
I need bomb shoes, not bombs. Like I said, equips. They just disappear from your brain.
And with Boomerang, having already gotten Boomerang from Podchester earlier, it makes Jabu really short. And that switch there, you normally have to hold it down with a box, but by rolling towards the door and with just the right timing, pressing A as you roll towards the door, you can open the door before it closes again. And in that room, you can use a bomb chew to just clip through the wall and go straight into the boss room, just skipping a switch there. And already at the boss.
So I have to kill this boss in a very particular place in the room to manipulate where the blue warp is going to spawn. Well, not very particular, but in the correct segment of the room, basically.
Yeah, it basically just has to be like the back section of the room.
Not for this one, in fact. Lower left.
Oh, right. Yeah, Lincoln Hundo.
Yeah, this one's sort of like Goma, where the boss ties makes the blue warp spawn in a particular spot. But this Baronade's a lot more predictable than Goma. Goma's kind of random. But yeah, so as you may have guessed by this point, there's a cutscene in this blue warp, and we don't like cutscenes, and so we're going to try to skip this one. The problem with this blue warp is there's a small fish child in it that really wants to talk to us, and Link isn't the most talkative person, so we're gonna do some things and prevent her from talking to us.
Some things is a really good way to put that.
hey man, I'm building suspense. This thing is cool.
I equipped off that fairy, right?
You did.
I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
I just got like a jolt of horrible dread and fear that I didn't do that.
Yeah, so Danny only had one fairy there, but with the equip swap glitch that Dotso described earlier, he was able to equip a second copy of the fairy and not consume his other one, which is good because he's going to die again right here and need that second fairy.
And so you saw there was kind of that weird thing that was happening where Danny would move out of the blue warp and he'd get dragged back in. That's the purpose of the first death, was to activate that glitch. And then the second death was so that Danny could move around while this text box is up. And now as soon as Danny closes this text box, it will activate the blue warp and like try to start the next cutscene. But he's going to try to do that in just the right way to cause a wrong warp to happen by falling out of bounds and voiding out. Along with moving the camera with the boomerang there. This is new. So this is Volvagia's room, the boss of the Fire Temple.
Which is our last dungeon, if you've been counting.
And Danny is hitting something. That is actually Volvagia that Danny is hitting before the fight even starts. So Volvagia is actually below the arena there. And you can damage Volvagia before the fight starts. You can't kill Volvagia, but you can get Volvagia down to 0 HP. I don't think you get Volvagia down to 0 there, right? Probably just like low health.
It is 0, yeah.
It's 9.
Okay.
I think. Oh no, yeah,
Oh.
it's 0 because he jumps on it.
Well, you can get it to 0, but there's no reason to, because I'm going to do
Yeah,
deal
yeah.
damage anyway.
But yeah, you just get Volvagia down to pretty low health, and then the actual fight is going to be pretty quick.
Which is good because remember, when Danny traded prescription for the eyeball frog, he got that timer that's still running. And that
Yeah,
timer,
that timer
is
is important.
gonna tick down. Now normally when the trade item timer ticks down, it brings you back to, in this case, King Zora.
Yeah, so this is the last dungeon. So we're going to do one final wrong warp here. The only thing left is to beat the game. So, I mean, Ganon's pretty far away. I don't know how close we can wrong warp to Ganon right now.
I think you can do all right.
I think we can get to about Long Range.
That's probably a good bet. It's not too far from Long Ranch to Ganon, right?
Nah, short little jaunt.
So the other wrong warps that you saw involved Danny dying or falling out of bounds in order to change where he went when the blue warp tried to bring him somewhere. In this case, it's that timer that's going to expire that would normally bring him back to King Zora.
This is peak speedrunning right here. Literally
Just
just
gotta wait
watching
out
a
the timer. Yeah. So he's gonna activate Ocarina items, let the blue warp start going. Timer's gonna go down.
And time. All right. We are done. That's it. That's all dungeons.
Nice.
We did them all. Long Ranch was right, dude. Good guess, Dotso.
Yeah, that was nice. I didn't think we'd be in the credits, but
Yeah, so the credits is the valid end condition for Ocarina of Time speedruns. We don't need to be Ganon if we don't have to. Some categories require that you do, some categories ban wrong warping, and so it's the only way to beat the game. But all dungeons is kind of an anything goes category. All glitches are allowed. You just gotta beat all the dungeons, and we can do a credits warp. So that's it. That's the whole thing. So we have one more thing to show you guys. I mentioned earlier that all dungeons is undergoing a reroute like right now. The route I just did is already old. It was like a month old, and it's already like completely obliterated by new things. And in fact, the new things that I'm about to show you may also be already old, depending on a video that may come out somewhere in the next 24 hours. But let me head over to the practice realm, which is a hack of Ocarina of Time, which doesn't change the gameplay, but just gives us a bunch of practice tools like save states and stuff. And I've got something set up to show you guys. So we did SRM, which was the glitch that gave us all the items in all dungeons, we did it in Goron City, rather. So there's a new place to do SRM that can also give you lots of items, and that happens to be Zora's River. And the reason why that's significant is this SRM can be done as Child Link. And so we can get all of the items that we need in Child 1, the beginning segment, before we even turn adult. And so if you remember, like as adults, some of the first things we did was like go beat Dodongo's Cavern, and that was hard because all we had was bomb chews, and bomb chews are like kind of annoying to kill King Dodongo. It's kind of annoying to do that wrong warp. That's why I failed it. Then we had to go to Goron City and do Pot Chest, and then Pot Chest ended in Silver Gauntlets, which sent it to Spirit Temple, and then we were done with the setup portion. But turns out that we can just begin adult with like all of the stuff that we need, because we can do this in Child 1. So let me import the save state that we need here. Shout outs to Glank and all the crew who contributes to this project, because this stuff is awesome. It's amazing that they can just like warp right here, and this is what I need to do. So we're in Child 1 right now. We'll have just come from Kakariko Village. We'll have escaped the forest, gotten bomb chews from bottom of the well. Literally all I have right now is bomb chews, a sword, and a shield. That's it. I don't got anything else. So we're gonna do some shenanigans.
Yeah, so as Seedborn was talking about earlier in Goron City, we can use SRM, which is stale reference manipulation, to so we can make the game think that what Link is holding isn't what he's actually holding. And that can point to different places in memory and do all kinds of crazy stuff. So what we're going to do here is the same thing in Goron City. It's the same exact principle, except instead of a pot, we're going to use a butterfly. And instead of a Goron to give us items, we're actually going to use the frogs, because they have the exact same function inside them, because they need to give you songs and a heart piece, which is actually the more important piece.
So yeah, we're gonna use a butterfly here to give us items. Oh, that didn't work actually. Oh, actually no, it did. Never mind, it worked. So this butterfly, I don't want it to be over here. It's kind of falling, so I'm just gonna grab that real quick. It looked like it was dying anyway, so we're just gonna give it a nice little burial here. So that butterfly, yeah, he's underground, but that's okay. So here's what we're gonna do. I am just gonna put this bomb chew down real quick, and then... Oh, did it not work? What? Dude, I'm mad. That didn't work.
That's weird. You're able to pick it up and it still didn't work.
I don't know how that didn't work. Was I not close enough to the butterfly? Maybe it did work and I just wasn't close enough. We're gonna try this one more time.
If you could pick it up, you set the function correctly, but...
Yeah, I don't know how... Oh, that's right. I already got the Skulltula. Dude, I did the hard speedrun pretty dang well. And now this isn't working. That's not good. Come on, man. Let's show this off for all the beautiful people in chat.
It's okay. It's only a few days old. You can make an excuse.
That's true. I've done this like 3 times ever, so.
So what Danny does here, the reason that he's able to do the same thing as in Goron City is that when he gets the Skulltula token, it freezes Link, and that is what prevents the game from losing that pointer that it has to where this bomb chew is in memory. You see that when the bomb chew explodes, Link's hands don't go down. That's because of being frozen from the Skulltula. That effectively replaces the super slide into the load zone in Goron City.
All right, Butterfly, you're coming with me. Come on, let's do this right. All right, it's time to put the butterfly down, and then I'm thinking we'll put this bomb chew down, and then yeah, there we go. There's some items. Goron Tunic. Look, we didn't have to talk to the guy. We could have just come here and gotten Goron Tunic like this.
That's so much faster.
It's so much faster. Hey, look, another thing we can get from a Goron, from a long cutscene. Oh, Din's Fire. Dude, we're skipping so many conversations right now. Spooky Mask. Deku Nuts. A small key. That's actually a small key to Forest Temple, so if we need to go do Forest Temple stuff, we're set. The bomb chute exploded. I guess we're done.
Oh, dude, no, you got a perfect setup for 127 Forest Temple keys.
That's true. Look at that. All right, yeah, I mean, I guess we can get some more. Slingshot seed bag. An ocarina. So what's happening here is we've set it up so that the butterfly has a function that was replaced with the frog's function, which gives you items. Now, the frogs store the item value that they're going to give you inside the frog's data structure. And we've arranged things so that where that function is looking for the item value is actually part of the bomb chute that's running along the ground. And in fact, it's actually part of some data that changes as the bomb runs along the ground. It's related to where the bomb chute is in space and where it is related to the camera. And so depending on how the camera is and how the bomb chute is running along the ground, we can just get tons of items in a row because the item value is constantly changing every single frame, and the function is running every single frame. You get magic beans, Neighbor's Love, and the game crashed. Oh, that's cool. I'm glad that we ended on a game crash because there's one item in that whole item list out of 256 items. There's one item that'll crash your game, and that's item 80. And in fact, it can only happen, you can only get that item if you press A. And because there are some invisible treasure chests here, just like in Goron City. And if I were to press A, I can open those invisible treasure chests. It just so happens that when I closed this text box for Neighbor's Love, I pressed A one more time, and I opened a treasure chest that contained item 80, and I crashed my game. So if you're going to do this, be safe. Drive safe in Ocarina of Time. Don't crash your game. Don't press A too many times. I think this is the perfect nonsense to end on. Yeah, that's Ocarina of Time All Dungeons, and this trick right here is a taste of what's to come. I think it'll probably save a few more minutes. We're pushing the 1 hour mark. I don't know if we'll get there with this trick, but I think we're like one breakthrough away from sub 1 hour Ocarina of Time All Dungeons. So that's going to be really exciting. So keep an eye out for people doing runs of this category. It's going to get interesting, as if it wasn't already.
All right.
Yeah, I think we're all set.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for the amazing run, Danny, and thank you for showing off that glitch that just makes my brain not want to work anymore. and thank you to Dotso, Seedborn, and ZFG for commentating. We're going to go to a quick Twitch ad. On the other side of that ad, we will do our customary little discussion about the differences between the original and the 3D remake, and then we'll jump into an All Dungeons 3D run by Gymnast86. So stay tuned.
Thanks for having me.
Game and its remake or reboot. We like to discuss the differences between them as speed games. Gymnast, you're actually kind of familiar with this. You did this less than 2 months ago for Majora's Mask. Did you want to talk about any of the things that'll be different from this run from the last?
Yeah, so Ocarina of Time 3D, the remake for the 3DS system, even though it's in spirit it's supposed to be the same game as Ocarina of Time, when it comes to speedrunning the game, the number of differences or the number of different things that we do vastly outweighs the number of similar things that we do compared to the original game. The original game makes very heavy use of things like bottle on B and RBA, and uses explosives like they almost mean nothing in the original game. In addition to their latest new find with the stale reference manipulation glitch, you're not going to really be seeing any of that in Ocarina of Time 3D. Again, it's pretty much going to be completely different. The order in which we do the dungeons, what version of Link we're doing the dungeons as, like child or adult, is going to be different. The only dungeon that I think even somewhat resembles how the original game does it in the run you guys just watched is maybe Shadow Temple, and even that's kind of a stretch. So yeah, you can expect to see lots of cool different things in addition to, the updated graphics, frame rate, and all the quality of life stuff that comes with playing the 3DS version.
Yeah, you can think about OT3D as just the original game with some prettier assets and a nice band-aid slapped over all the tricks.
Yeah.
Doesn't cover it up pretty well.
And so, yeah, this is my commentator for tonight, Aaron Toad 99.
Hello.
He's also run Ocarina of Time 3D in the past and has helped with the routing and stuff that we've done recently, because there has been a pretty big break within the last few months for Ocarina of Time 3D also. And we will be seeing that demonstrated fully in this run today. So I'm excited to get started.
All right. I think we're getting a few things here just on the tech side set up. Just want to make sure that we got the bottom screen captured. Okay. Yeah, so we are good to go. If you could let me know when you're ready to start, I have the timer ready.
All right, very good. And then we shall start momentarily. I just need to erase the file of the no reset run I just did. Make a new one. Okay. So if we are ready, I will count down from 5. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And off we are. Unsurprisingly, the intro cutscene is pretty much the same. Who would have thought?
One thing that people will notice right away, though, is that Jim is playing in English instead of Japanese. I saw a lot of people at the beginning of the previous run ask why the game was in Japanese, and a lot of people correctly responding with the fact that Japanese just happens to be the faster language for the game, and there aren't like any differences between versions in the original. Same is true in this game. However, the text in this game works a lot differently. For every text box in the game that's not in a shop or on like a white background, there's a 1-frame window where you can press the B button, and all the scrolling of the text will be automatically filled in for you. So a lot of the text in this game is like actually very important. You need to keep your rhythm up.
Yeah, you have to have like a rhythm for mashing text, which is kind of weird. So like it is possible to lose time, like a significant amount of time, because you are not mashing text properly in this game.
Yeah. To put it into perspective, from now until when Jim gains control of Link in Link's house, you can actually lose upwards of 10 seconds by not getting any text skips compared to like getting all of them. It's very significant over the course of the run.
Yeah, so all these text boxes here with the Great Deku Tree talking to Navi, we're not supposed to be able to like skip through any of those, but if I manage to press the B button on the correct frame while the text box is popping up, then all the text just scrolls by immediately. So I was able to get, I think, like 6 out of 9 of them there, which is pretty decent. It's about what we shoot for. Typically, we won't get the first text box in like a series of text boxes, but if we have the correct mashing rhythm with the B button, then we will be able to get all the next ones in sequence, if we also keep up that rhythm. But yeah, because of that, doesn't really matter what language you play the game on. What would technically matter is how many individual text boxes the language has, which would depend on the category that you're playing, definitely. But that's why language doesn't really matter at all, because, you'll usually get different text boxes, like just on different runs. So pretty much everyone just plays on English, unless you have the Japanese copy of the game. All right, we are just about ready to actually gain some control here and go right into another cutscene. How exciting. So just in case anyone is joining us, I, Gymnast86, am running the game, and my commentator with me is Aaron Toad 99, who was speaking just a moment ago. So first thing we do in Kokiri Forest, backflip off Link's house, and then we will be going over to get the Kokiri sword. Pretty much what you do in a standard playthrough of this game, and in most speedrun categories. Although once we get the sword, we're just going to be dipping out of Kokiri Forest. There's not much else that we're going to do here for the time being. But this is an all dungeons run, so we are going to need to beat all the dungeons. And obviously the Deku Tree is one of those dungeons, because a dungeon is defined as any place that has a blue warp at the end of it. So we will be needing to beat the Deku Tree, but we're gonna get a few things before we beat it. It actually is going to be the first dungeon that we beat, though, unlike the Ocarina of Time run that was just shown. Now, to escape the forest with just the sword, I'm going to do this technique called a triple slash clip, where I'm going to slash my sword 3 times and then put it away to try and clip into the guard at the edge of the forest here. Although, it's kind of weird, because, like, for some reason, at this one specific TSC spot, Link just, like, doesn't want to put his sword away sometimes, and we need him to put his sword away as fast as possible if we want the clip through the guard to actually work. But thankfully, I was able to get it pretty decently there. Like, if I was doing actual attempts, I would be perfectly fine getting it in, like, 3 tries.
Yeah, there's a weird oddity in this version of the game, where if you slash your sword 3 times and then put it away by either putting your sword away or just pulling out another item, Link just pops backwards really fast. It happens in the original version too, although not nearly to the same effect. Doing that escape is actually possible in the original, as people found out recently, but it just doesn't work the exact same way.
Alright, so now we got Saria's Ocarina. Pretty useful tool. We will be playing a bunch of songs here and there. Most notably, we need the Ocarina to play Zelda's Lullaby in the 2 fairy fountains that we're going to go to in this run. We're going to be going to the Magic Fairy Fountain and the Ferori's Wind Fairy Fountain. And obviously, we're going to need Zelda's Lullaby if we want to spawn the fairies there. So our next goal is to go to Hyrule Castle and get Zelda's Lullaby. And we'll be making our way over there. Unfortunately, we do have to talk to the owl. But it doesn't take too long. Again, all text in this game is pretty quick. And then, of course, just backwalk across Hyrule Field. One thing that we didn't mention yet is that since this game is on the 3DS, it actually has gyro capabilities, which is indicated by the 3DS icon with the 4 red arrows in the top right of the screen. And this applies when I'm targeting too, not just like when I'm aiming with first-person items, so I can like move the camera around while I'm backwalking.
Oh god, please stop. I don't want to get too dizzy tonight.
Also, I'm going to need some rupees for when I buy a Deku Shield later, so it's just most convenient to collect those 2 as we go up the chain. And make our way through the market. So as I'm sure most people know, the normal sequence of events here is that we need to get the weird egg from Malin. And then eventually we need to wait to the next morning for it to hatch into a Kako so that we can wake up Talon and move the boxes to get to the sewer entrance to the guards area. So you'd think that the fastest way of making Malin appear would be to go in and out of the market town again, because Malin will appear once this area is reloaded for a second time. But it's actually faster to go all the way up here and then just get caught by a guard, because this is one less loading zone than we would go through going to the market. And in this area specifically, and not in the market town, time is actually going to pass forward, like the time of day, which we obviously need to have happen if we want the egg to eventually hatch. So this saves like 2 or 3 seconds or something like that. It essentially just allows the dawn to come a little bit quicker if we do it in that way. And then, of course, this time we don't want to get caught by the guard. So we will be jumping across the bridge over the gap so that the guard doesn't see us, because the guards have reduced vision during the nighttime.
Yeah, I believe that jump over there is only possible with a mega flip during the daytime. You can't make that jump normally like that.
And so now we basically just, have to wait for the dawn to appear. In the meantime, we can pull this box over We do only need one box to actually make it to the sewer entrance, which is nice. I can clip through the box like that, though, which does not help at all, but looks funny, so cool thing.
When I see you clip through the box, I clap.
Thank you. Yeah, that clip is frame perfect, I'm pretty sure.
I believe that's true, yes.
Alright, and we don't even need to jump slash to get up to the sewers with just one box. If we just run and jump, we'll just kind of pop up on the top because of just where Link is. And now it's time for the nice RNG portion of the run, the guards right here. Alright, so I made it past the first guy. We'll easily make it past the second guy. I don't know. The second guy just never notices you. Third guy's already gone through, so that's good. We're gonna have to, unfortunately, play a little waiting game with this guy right here. He tried to trick me. Come on, there you go. Alright. This is pretty slow.
Not the kind of pattern that you want.
Yeah.
Not too bad. At least you didn't get caught.
Yeah, getting caught would have definitely wasted a lot more time than that bad pattern, but we eventually made it, so it's okay.
So the way guards work in this game is that if you are caught in their line of sight, you will be flagged as caught, and during your next stage where you're being or able to be caught, the guards will come up to you and catch you. But guards require you to be on the ground for 2 frames in order to be caught. So if you keep side hopping frame perfectly, you'll only touch the ground for 1 frame. So even if guards see you in the air, if you keep your frame perfect side hop chain, you will not be caught. So that's what you want to do optimally, is just side hop and never touch the ground.
Yeah, so in like a tool-assisted speedrun, you would just do frame-perfect side hops all the way through and you wouldn't ever have to worry about getting caught, but unfortunately we're human, so we can't do that consistently.
The guard line of sight also kind of lags behind their actual heads, like visually on the screen for some reason. So that can also kind of throw you off if you don't know what to
Yeah.
look for.
Yeah, so whenever like one of the guards' heads turns away from where they would look at me, I usually wait like a second before I actually start trying to side hop past where they were looking. So we did mention earlier how like this game has quick text where we can make like text boxes close much sooner than they should. Sometimes it doesn't really matter though. Like when the camera right here is panning towards Ganondorf, it doesn't matter how quick the text is because the camera still has to pan towards him.
Yeah, some cutscenes have like scripted lengths of camera pans and such. This one has a bunch. The Master Sword cutscene has a few. Makes it nice not to have to worry about your mashing for a little bit.
Yeah, quick text is both like a blessing and a curse because it saves a lot of time, but it also means you can lose a lot of time if you just don't happen to get the frames.
Yeah. 2 of the best runners of this game, Zelda Cubed and Jim here, they are capable of getting times for Zelda's Letter around like the 11:20 range.
I
It's
usually
like
get
around
like
your best.
11:30s, but yeah, my best is
11:30s.
like 11:25.
Yeah, some runners of the game like me and Ben Stevens, our averages are usually around like 12:40, 12:45, just solely on text.
I think you mean
It's
11:40.
Yeah, 11:40. My bad. But
Yeah, you don't lose a minute on quick text.
it's not that. It's not that much, luckily, but it's still pretty significant, especially over such a short period of time.
Yeah, and that's mainly just all during like the intro and then the Zelda's letter cutscene. All right, but now we have Zelda's Letter and Zelda's Lullaby, so we can make our way over to Kakariko Village and then Death Mountain Trail. This is where we're going to start doing some bigger sequence breaking. Because up till this point, the only thing that we actually skipped was completing the Deku Tree, which we have to go back and complete anyway, so we didn't really skip much with not doing the Deku Tree right away. but normally after you get to like Death Mountain Trail and go to Goron City, you're supposed to open up the path to the Lost Woods and then go and get Saria's Song. We're not actually going to be doing that. We will be completely skipping Saria's Song in this run. And instead, we're going to just head straight over to get magic. And there are going to be some funky things we have in store to achieve that. So I think you guys are going to like it. Here I'm going to use the gyro cam to aim the camera to the right so that I can more easily tell when I need to side hop up here to get in front of the carpenter. And then this is a big text sequence right here where you can potentially lose a lot of time if you don't get like most of the quick text.
This little chain of text boxes is probably the most satisfying to nail in the entire game. I don't know what it is about it. It just feels so good.
All right, now on Death Mountain Trail, I'm going to be doing a trick known as a fess, which is one of the tricks that we can do with an ESS position on the circle pad. So I'm going to hold ESS position right here. And now after I get hit by the Tektite, Link's going to start sliding forward with more momentum than normal. If you want to explain this, Aaron.
Yeah, so I'm sure it was explained in the previous OT run, if you guys watched it, that when you hold a slight direction on the analog stick in this game, Link does this kind of like shuffling animation, or he spins in place. An interesting property of that is that it kind of maintains your current speed. So when you get hit by an enemy, like a Tektite there, you gain a bunch of speed from being knocked over. And if you hold that position consistently on your control stick, you will keep all of that. Doing that type of slide off of an enemy forwards in the original game is actually quite slow. I think it's like much slower than backwalking. But because of the frame rate differences in this game, it's actually, I believe, exactly 50% faster, going from 20 FPS to 30. So you're able to get more speed when sliding up the mountain. Makes it worth it. I think that one saves 11 seconds if you do it optimally. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, now that we're in Goron City, you might notice that I'm like going back and forth with these loading triggers a bunch. That's because I'm setting up for a trick to unload the collision of the statue behind Darunia so I can get into Death Mountain Crater. This is necessary so that we can get up to the Magic Fairy Fountain, because otherwise I would need explosives to blow up the rocks that are actually out on Death Mountain Trail. And big shoutouts to Blinny for discovering this, because the other trick that we would normally have had to do to get up to the Magic Fairy Fountain without explosives was this really bad Tektite hover that no one liked.
Yeah,
So
this
thank
trick
you,
is 100 times easier. What a great discovery. It's also way faster, too. It's the best kind of discovery.
And can barely make it up to the top of Death Mountain Crater with just enough time left. And now we get to the part where we will be getting magic without explosives. So I'm gonna get up out of bounds here using a seam that's up on the side of the mountain. And then I will be positioning myself just on the very edge of the collision for the mountain. And if I walk out of bounds and then do a jump slash right as I fall, I can just barely hit the tip of the loading zone to the Magic Fairy Fountain. Like, it just barely works. It's really close to not working, but thankfully it is possible, so we can get into this Magic Fairy Fountain without explosives. And yeah, so for most of OT3D's history, the start of the run would have us go get Saria's Song, the Goron Bracelet, get bombs into Dongo's Cavern, and then come up here to get magic from this fairy. Obviously, we didn't do any of that. We're actually not going to be obtaining explosives for a really long time in this run. Like, we're not going to get them until probably about the 55-minute mark if the run is good. So we're going to have to do everything without explosives, but it is possible, thankfully, so it's pretty nice. This was pretty much like the big discovery that was made recently is we figured out all the things that would be necessary to skip having to use explosives, at least for the first part of the run. All right, so after this, we did a save warp just to get back to Kokiri Forest. Now that I have rupees, I'm going to go and buy the Deku Shields. If you remember, I got 40 rupees from the chains on the drawbridge right before I entered into the market town. And it's just faster to buy the shield now. Because if I wanted to buy it like before exiting Kokiri Forest, I would have had to collect 40 rupees in Kokiri Forest, which only consists of like blues and greens. And I didn't need the shield for anything until after I came back here, so.
Now you're going to be making your way to Zora's Domain.
Yes. So the most broken item in Ocarina of Time 3D is by far Furore's Wind. So our goal right now is to just get Furore's Wind as fast as possible, and then we will begin tackling some of the dungeons. Gotta stop and talk to our good friend the Owl, though, of course. And then to get to Zora's Domain, I'm going to be doing a Navi dive here with the entrance to Zora's Domain from Lost Woods. Normally you'd need at least the silver scale to get down here, but with the Navi dive, we can get down here during the cutscene of Navi trying to talk to us.
And just to add as well, it is possible to skip owls in this game, like in OT. Yeah, Jim could have swapped stick and sword to get around that trigger, but you're going to be coming here, was it 2 more times after this?
Yeah, 2 more times after this.
Yeah, so it's not really worth it. You might as well just talk to the owl and then not have to worry about it later.
And then, yeah, of course, now also using Zelda's Lullaby to part the waterfall. The original game, you can actually use a cucko to get behind the waterfall there. That actually doesn't work in 3D, so we're pretty much forced to use Zelda's Lullaby.
Yeah, they made the water stronger.
They made the water 3-dimensional. Alright, so in Zora's Domain, there's a pot with a stick and a pot with some Deku Nuts. We will be needing these for the run. Although I technically only need 1 Deku Stick right now, but I just have 2 for safety, because if I screw up the trick that I use the Deku Stick for, that's, like, really bad. I don't want to do that. Alright, so we don't have Ruto's Letter. So to get past King Zora, we're just going to clip through the acute corner that's next to him with a triple slash clip instead. And this will allow us to get behind him, since we can just swim up the water that's near where the loading zone is. It's very convenient. All right, now we're in Zora's Fountain, and we need to get Furore's Wind without the use of explosives. And this trick is very visually perplexing. It's going to look like we're using like a levitation cheat code up here near the fountain entrance, but we guarantee that's not what's happening. Link is actually going to climb up a very thin piece of collision right here. All right, so I got on the first piece. Now if I aim like this and just scooch forward, he climbs very high, and then from there I can backflip to get on top of the fairy fountain. And then once I'm up here, I have to do a separate setup so that I can actually clip into the fairy fountain, using a bunch of side hops and sword slashes. And then to top off the clip, I have to do a buffered input using home buffering so that I can fall and then jump slash within a 3-frame window to clip through the fountain entrance.
That was really well done. Nice job.
Thank you.
We knew about that seam walk using Infinite Sword Glitch for about a year and a half now, right? Something like that. Although the actual process of getting Infinite Sword Glitch in the fountain entrance is like very difficult and entirely random. So I don't think a single run was ever completed using that trick. Gotta give shoutouts to Venek for coming up with a way to climb the seam without ISG, and then allowing us to come up with that clip as well at the beginning of the year. If you want to learn more about our community's struggles with finding early explosives until we ultimately found out a way to skip them, you can watch Jim's most recent elusive glitches video on his YouTube channel. He goes pretty in depth about all the different methods and ideas we had over like the last 5 or more years.
I mean, it was mostly like ideas that people from the OOT community had that just didn't work in 3D for a range of different and sometimes very stupid reasons. But yeah, so as of a few months ago, though, we can finally get around that. All right, so the first dungeon we're going to enter into is Jabu Jabu's Belly. We're actually not going to be here for very long, though. I just came here to set Furore's Wind, because I'm actually going to go do Deku Tree and then come back to Jabu Jabu's Belly. But because I have Furore's Wind and I'm in Jabu Jabu's Belly, it's just more convenient to set Furore's Wind here and then come back later. And then obviously we can again do a save warp to get back to Kokiri Forest, which is a much faster way of getting back to the Deku Tree than like trying to go through the overworld. Thankfully, Mito's not here. I think because it's nighttime or something. But
It's because you have Zelda's Lullaby, I think is the trigger, not letter.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I always forget what it is, but
Some characters in Kokiri Forest change their properties based on certain flags that have been set or items that you have.
I can just quickly zoom through the Deku Tree's text. When we get rid of like his last 3 text boxes, his mouth is still moving down even after the cutscene has ended, where he opens his mouth. All right, it's time for Deku Tree, though. Deku Tree is pretty short. It's obviously the first dungeon in the game. I first need to get some more Deku Nuts so that I have 10 total, because that's how many I'm going to need for the run. And then, unlike most other speedruns except for 100%, we're actually going to get the slingshot in all dungeons here for multiple reasons that we will probably explain later.
Just trust us, it's important.
Once we're in the slingshot room, it's actually fastest to not jump across the platform immediately, and instead jump across it after we get the slingshot, because then we don't have to shoot down the ladder that's near where the exit to this room is.
Going off on the power of seams in this game, even more recently, it was found that you can climb up a seam located like on the very edge of the web in the first room of Deku Tree, and you can climb it all the way to the top. That is definitely the fastest way to break that web, because you can fall down and break it, but for this run you need the slingshot, so it's just not really the best suited strategy.
Yeah. So after we break the web that's on the initial floor, I'm actually going to be doing a mega side hop off of the Deku Baba here, which is going to put me in such a location so that I can break the web in the basement floor with the fall velocity that I have from that mega side hop, which is pretty cool. It's like, honestly, probably the coolest trick in this entire game, like just swag-wise.
Yeah,
and execution-wise, it just feels great.
You can make a side hop to skip basement in the original game as well, but you don't land on the web, so you're not able to break it. That's just one minor difference between the original and this game.
Yeah, the 3DS version gets what's known as an anti-grav when we do the mega side hop, so Link actually slides like a little bit on the ceiling, just for a little amount of time, but it's enough to get him back to the web. All right, so for the Goma fight, I'm using what's known as the broken Deku Stick glitch to use a Deku Stick an infinite amount of times, because the Deku Stick is more powerful than the Kokiri Sword. And because we don't have a way to get ISG in this room, it's just better to do this instead, and faster. Do you want to explain what's coming up next, Darren?
Yeah, of course. So right here, Jim is going to be performing a glitch known as restricted items to use Furor's Wind in a room that he's not able to. The inventory in this game doesn't work properly when you swap items and unpause. It takes one additional frame of gameplay to update the usability conditions for each item that's equipped on X and Y. And so what Jim did was he had Deku Nuts equipped on Y and Furor's Wind equipped on X, and then he swapped the two items, and for one frame after unpausing, he was able to use Furor's Wind on the Y button. That allowed him to pull up the menu during the animation of him going up the warp, and he caused a wrong warp to happen by warping back to Jabu Jabu at the same time as the cutscene offset was applied from the Deku Tree warp, and that warped him to the second half of the Sun Song cutscene, which just allows him to void out because he spawns out of bounds, and that brings him back to Jabu Jabu conveniently. All that setup was pretty much just to be able to go back to Jabu Jabu and not have to watch the Deku Tree cutscene.
Yeah, because the Deku Tree cutscene is extremely long.
It's one of the longest cutscenes in the game. I think it's like second longest, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, compared to like the credits?
I think Light Arrow cutscene is longer in the original, but maybe because that cutscene doesn't have text boxes, it's probably longer in this game.
Maybe.
I don't know. You
We've
never
never
watched that
timed this.
cutscene outside of Glitch List, so.
Yeah. But yeah, Jabu Jabu, not doing anything too fancy right now, just trying to avoid the Shabombs. Because yes, these bubble-like objects are not called bubbles, they're called Shabombs. And the bubble enemy is something completely different. So in this room with the elevator, we have pretty much nothing to do except wait. Maybe Rudo will make a weird noise for us.
This whole section of carrying Rudo is notoriously boring. We do have a way to skip it in this game using different wrong warps, but for the purposes of this route, it's not faster.
Yeah, so when carrying Rudo, the fastest movement is backwalking, because you obviously can't side hop while you're holding her, or else that's just going to throw her forward. But yeah, we do need Rudo, of course, to hold down the switch to get to the boomerang room.
I'm gonna keep pointing out minor changes in this game. For some reason, this room has one fewer enemy. In OT, this room has 4. In OT 3D, it has 3. No idea why.
Maybe the developers were being cheeky and trying to make a 3D reference. I don't know.
Potentially. Who knows?
But yeah, so this is, of course, to get the boomerang. We need the boomerang to beat Baronade, who is the boss of Jabu Jabu's belly. And then after I get the boomerang, I can actually just straight up use Furori's Wind again, because the warp point actually wasn't taken away when I did the wrong warp, because Link never actually appeared out of it. He appeared in a different location. So it's convenient for getting back here. And if you want to explain what's going to happen next.
Yeah, so Jim is going to be doing a Mega Flip here. Normally, you'll see Mega Flips done with explosives because they're a more consistent source of damage. In this case, Jim is going to be manipulating the position of this Beery in order to use as a damage source for the Mega Flip. Mega Flips are an interesting trick. You saw a Mega Side Hop earlier in Deku Tree. It's pretty much the exact same concept. You have invincibility frames, you roll by rolling into a damage source, you block that damage source, and then on specific frames you need to backflip or side hop. And that just gives you the distance that you need to cross that gap. And then he did a trick on the switch where he pulled the letter or the frame he jumped on the switch, and that allowed him to delay the door being held open.
Yeah, so a bunch of quick tricks in sequence right there. It's hard to explain all of them in time with them actually happening.
It's a common trend for Ocarina of Time and Ocarina of Time 3D.
And then you have these long cutscenes where like nothing's happening occasionally. Anyway, time to fight Baronade. The fight that we do here is pretty much the same that you saw in the N64 game, except obviously we're Child Link and not Adult Link. It is possible to use the boomerang as Adult Link, but not in a way that's convenient enough, like for running this game. Because in the original game, you can use the boomerang pretty much anytime you want, as long as you have like an item to equip swap it over. But equip swap does not exist in 3D because the inventory system is completely different.
Yeah, that's one of the few things that was completely overhauled between the games, was the inventory system. That's what allows stuff like restricted items to work, and stuff like equip swap to not work.
Yeah, overall, pretty decent Baronade fight. Nothing went wrong. And we will not be using this blue warp to wrong warp, even though it technically is possible, but the requirements to make it happen again are just too much for convenient routing into this run.
Yeah, I believe you need 2 bottled fairies and explosives in order to cause wrong warps to happen in this game. This warp.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Yeah, this setup is way too complicated. Jim will not be getting any bottles as child or explosives, so not worth it.
Yeah. It's especially not worth it because pretty much every category of this game gets Ferori's Wind as Child Link right here. And Jabu was like right next to here, so. Also in this cutscene, because I got quick text on the first 3 boxes, Ruto started moving away from Link much earlier than she should, and it saved like 4 seconds, so.
Yeah, it's 4 seconds.
Shoutouts to fast Ruto cutscene.
I have no idea why that
Yeah.
happens. It doesn't make any sense. You just trigger the dialogue prompt to come up sooner? I don't know. It's weird. I don't think there's anything else like that in this game, where like cutscene scripts will kind of like play out sooner than normal. But you do need to get all 3 of the first quick texts. If you miss any of them, you won't get the quick Ruto trick that we call it.
Okay, so we've done Deku Tree and we've done Jabu Jabu's Belly. Aaron, what dungeon do you think we should do next?
I think it's time to go and do the Forest Temple.
What? Forest Temple?
Just trust me on this.
But that's not a Child Link dungeon.
Anything can be a Child Link dungeon if you try hard enough.
Alright, well I guess we're heading to Forest Temple. So, I'm gonna need to place Ferori's Wind outside of the twins' house, right there. So that I can yet again do more wrong warpings, so that we can eventually get to the Forest Temple. Because yes, we will be doing the Forest Temple as Child Link. You know, I was thinking Dodongo's Cavern, but I guess that makes too much sense for an Ocarina of Time speedrun.
Yeah, you thought I was joking. This is a no-joke speedrun.
Alright, so we're going to go through the Lost Woods again, and this time I'm going to intentionally die to some Deku Scrubs right here. So, damage right here. And then as the last Deku Scrub attack hits me, I'm going to want to jump slash into this grotto right here. And this is going to cause Link to appear in Impa's house in Kakariko Village, because that makes a lot of sense.
Oh boy, Deathhole. Should probably explain exactly why this works, huh?
Yeah.
So, this game, I'm sure you've seen many times so far in this run, has an option to quit directly to the title screen, so runners of this game don't have to reset the game every time they want to go back to the title screen. And in order to accomplish this, Grezzo added a entrance value of FFFF that gets set upon every loading zone in this game. And when that's triggered, that's what causes you to go to the title screen. And so an interesting thing happens when you do the Death Hole oddity from the original Ocarina of Time. That happens when you fall into a grotto and die at the same time. If you quit the game and cause FFFF to trigger, you will have the grotto apply basically after you go to the title screen, and that causes something called Death Hole Wrong Warp to activate. Essentially what's happening here is Jim is in a state of the game called Attract Mode, which is the name of the state that's used to like show off the like cutscenes that happen on the title screen of like Link learning Bolero or that cutscene of Neboru in Spirit Temple. And an interesting oddity of Attract Mode is that all loading zones have an offset of +4 applied to them, and because that's all wrong warps are, every loading zone is essentially a wrong warp. You're just entering entrances, and then you're being taken to entrances that are 4 slots underneath on their entrance list that's stored internally. And so
Right.
Jim placed for his win there in the market, and when he walked to Temple of Time, he went 4 entrances lower than that, which is Fire Temple from Volvagia's room.
Right. Because the chain of wrong warps to get to Forest Temple actually involves going through Fire Temple like this.
Yeah.
The hard part about what's about to come up is that I actually need to die into the Fire Temple to Death Mountain Crater loading zone. So to do that, I'm actually going to be luring a Keese over to the loading zone like this. Actually, this is going to be really sketchy. Okay. All right. Yes. I've never done that trick like that before, so good backup.
Yeah.
Of course, we spawned in the basement of the Forest Temple, which is not where we want to be. So Link immediately dies, which gives me the option to save and quit the game. And that's what allows me to actually get into Forest Temple while not in the Death Hole Wrong Warp mode. So we're not going to be doing any more wrong warping for a little bit.
Yeah. One kind of bad property of Attract Mode is that the bottom screen is disabled, so you're only able to use items that are on the X and the Y buttons. So that's why Jim had Deku Nuts and Furor's Wind on those buttons. And because of the fact that the bottom screen is disabled, you can't just press the start button to like pause the game and quit. You need to die. And because you're at the basement of Forest Temple and you want to get to the top outside of Death Hole State, you want to, well, die. And the only way to actually do that without explosives is to have the Keese hit you in midair as you are going into the loading zone, and that allows you to die and leave the Death Hole State by saving and quitting.
All right, because even if we could get into the loading zone after appearing right there in Forest Temple, that would just wrong warp us to Water Temple, which is not where we want to be. So, yeah.
We want to be in Forest Temple because I said so.
Yeah, because Aaron said so. All right, now as Child Link, we can actually just clip out of bounds in the first room right here, and then get to the unloaded basement. And in the unloaded basement, we can do some weird out of bounds movement to get into the loading zone.
Yeah, so this basement area is unloaded, and when rooms are unloaded, certain actors just don't exist. And I believe the reason you are able to get out of bounds in this room is because that little like spinner object in the basement that you push around isn't there.
Yeah,
I believe that's what it is.
Because that's an actor. So
Yeah, that's an actor. It happens to not be there, so there's just kind of a hole in the wall that you can access, and then you just navigate around and jump behind the boss door in order to reach the loading zone.
Wait a minute, Aaron, there's a problem here.
What's the problem?
I don't have the bow or hook shot. How am I supposed to damage Phantom Ganon as Child Link?
You have the boomerang, just believe.
I don't know. I think I'm going to need something else. Oh, I know. How about the slingshot? Phantom Ganon is weak to the slingshot, right?
I don't know. Give it a shot.
All right, let's see.
Sniped.
Yeah, so the reason we get the slingshot is because it's much easier. Well, it's not easier, because it's possible to defeat Phantom Ganon as Child Link if you shoot him with the slingshot to get through the first phase. And then the second phase is also pretty broken as Child Link because Phantom Ganon is also weak to the boomerang. So pretty much every time the Phantom Ganon gets up on the second phase here, I'm just gonna be shooting him with the boomerang.
When fighting this phase of Phantom Ganon, you can kind of like cause him to block a projectile item like a bow, arrow, or a hook shot, and that allows you to like stab him while he after he's finished blocking, because he'll be in a vulnerable state. For some reason, the boomerang hits him through the block. I don't know why it happens, but it's really, really good.
Yeah,
It makes
it's
this
very
fight.
convenient for Child Link.
Yeah, very, very convenient.
All right, now that Phantom Ganon is dead, though, I'm going to be attempting to do a cutscene skip with Furore's Wind on the blue warp here, because we don't want to have to watch the Forest Temple cutscene.
Yeah, blue warps that take you into the Chamber of Sages directly don't cause wrong warps to happen. So when you pull up Furore's Wind using the restricted items glitch, it'll just let you warp somewhere else without having to watch the cutscene. So unfortunately there, Jim went home buffering to bring up the Furore's Wind frame. He was one frame too early, and home buffering in this game isn't really consistent. And so unfortunately he missed the frame after being one frame early.
Yeah,
Which is
so
fine, he just has to go back.
yes, that's why I did the safety save right beforehand. And then, of course, we can just get back down to the boss room the same way we did earlier.
Yeah. Restricted items is, or wrong warps anyway with restricted items are very non-trivial. They take a lot of practice to get good at, and even if you're a skilled runner of this game, it can be a problem just because they're, you know, precise and they waste so much time when you fail them.
Depending on like which dungeon you fail it in, will like determine how much time you waste, because it takes a different amount of time to get back to the entrances of different dungeons.
Yeah, something like Deku Tree would be really fast, but I think this one is one of the slower ones, maybe? As Child Link, anyway.
Yeah, and in this specific route.
Yeah, someone in chat pointed out that if you step into this blue warp in the original game and try to watch the cutscene, the game will crash, for the N64 version anyway. I'm pretty sure that's true, however in this game that's not true. You don't have to skip this cutscene to make this route possible. It's just much faster.
All right, so thankfully right there, I was able to get a one-frame home buffer, despite bringing up the home menu a little too early. So now we got the Forest Medallion, and we were able to skip the Forest Temple cutscene. Now, after skipping the cutscene, I'm going to replace Furore's Wind here in the market, because we're going to be using it for another Death Hole sequence that'll be coming up after this, once I save warp to get back to the Lost Woods.
So, just for anybody not keeping track, so far Jim has completed the Deku Tree, Jabu Jabu, and Forest Temple. 3 dungeons
3 down, 5 to go.
Yep, 5 to go. Something like this for Twilight Princess? Yeah, I'm sure Twilight Princess would benefit pretty greatly from a wrong warping glitch.
Well, depending on how you define wrong warping, might technically be something in Twilight Princess, but anyway. Maybe if there's eventually a retro reboot for Twilight Princess. Alright, so now we're back here with the scrubs. Also, a side effect of going through that last Death Hole sequence is that I lost my shield, but thankfully that's not too important. Don't actually need the shield for anything else this run.
Yeah, the Keith said that he'll make this route possible, but in exchange we'll have to give him our shield. It's a good trade.
So once again, I'm going to get teleported to Impa's house. Using Furore's Wind this time is actually going to take us to where we set it. If I actually use it instead of using Zelda's letter, that is.
When you slashed your sword, I thought you were going to pick up the heart piece.
Alright, so for this wrong warp chain, we're going to enter the shooting gallery, which is going to take us to the area outside the Temple of Time. And so from here, we can enter into the Temple of Time, which very surprisingly will actually take us to the Temple of Time. Who would have thought?
Yeah, the Temple of Time has many entrances, so entering the entrance and then going 4 entrances down is still the Temple of Time, luckily. So if
It
Jim
just
was
happens
still...
to be in front of the Master Sword.
Yeah. If Jim here was still in Death Hole mode when he picked up the Master Sword, the game would crash here. However, a good property of some cutscenes in this game is that they cancel Death Hole. So when Jim watched the entrance cutscene of entering Temple of Time for the first time, that actually brought him out of Death Hole, wrong warp mode. You can tell if you're in it or not based on whether or not the A action prompt is on the bottom right of the top screen. So when Jim was rolling to Temple of Time, it wasn't there. But then after he gained control and picked up the sword, you could have seen that it was there.
Yeah, and so now we get to go through the fun Master Sword cutscene, where we have more incredible quick text. So yeah, this is a Door of Time skip in this game. There are a number of different ways we can do Door of Time skip, but the Death Hole Wrong Warp one is the fastest. Unfortunately, it is a one-time use trick because it only works due to the cutscene that plays at the beginning of the Temple of Time. So that is not possible to do again on this file now. Also, yeah, the 1 hour 35 minutes is just the estimate that I gave for the run. Like, depending on how good some of the other tricks go, it might go that long, but hopefully not.
I think you'll pull out a good time for the run.
Hopefully. So far, the only big mistake has been missing the Forest Temple cutscene skip. The current record for this category is a 1:20:22, and my current PB is a 1:21:33, so it's about a minute better than my PB. And is held by Ben Stevens 56. I don't think he submitted to the leaderboards though, so if you like look at the all dungeons leaderboards, it wouldn't be there.
I don't know if it's on his YouTube channel either. Twitter might be the best place to keep updated on that kind of stuff.
I mean, yeah, 3D community is not as big as the Ocarina of Time community for the N64 game, so...
It should still be on the leaderboard. I'll bug him later. Almost done with these cutscenes. Are you ready for your very long adult section?
Oh, yeah. So we will be completing the rest of the dungeons as Adult Link, of course.
Yep. No more dungeons as Child Link. That is correct.
But we do have to get through these few cutscenes first. So, when we did the Death Hole Wrong Warp to skip the Door of Time, we also skipped the cutscene where Navi's like, oh my god, look, it's the Master Sword. So we're actually just going to end up watching that now with one actor not really in the right place.
Yeah, that cutscene's trigger still exists on other Temple of Time scene setups, so you can watch it as Adult Link too if you haven't cleared it before.
And now that that cutscene's over, it's time to reload this area and watch the Prelude of Light cutscene.
Yeah, this cutscene trigger happens when Forest Temple is cleared. And because Jim beat the Forest Temple as Child, he can watch this cutscene now. Some people who are more experienced with Ocarina of Time might have watched the whole run and might be asking, hey, why didn't Jim pull out the Ocarina and play Sun Song to skip this cutscene? And that is possible in this game and would have skipped the cutscene. However, Jim didn't actually get the Sun Song when he wrong warped into that cutscene, unfortunately.
Yeah, we actually wrong warped into the second half of the Sun Song cutscene, which doesn't give you the Sun Song, at least for the duration that we're in it. So
yeah, I wish it did. It would be pretty cool, but
Yeah,
it's all right.
It
Just
would,
watch the
would be,
cutscene.
it would be very convenient for this route. All right, so now that we've got Prelude, we are actually finished as Adult Link. Great job, everyone. This was a very optimal adult section. I can't think of anything that could have potentially gone better.
You could have mashed some of the text boxes a bit faster.
I probably could have, yeah, but you know, movement-wise, everything was perfect. I think.
Yeah, movement was amazing, spot on.
Those 2 rolls that I did, wow.
So that's the reason why Jim completed the Forest Temple as a child, was because he could immediately get Prelude and return to Child Link. An earlier version of this route, before Explosive Skip was found even, was a route that went adult immediately and completed Forest Temple and then went back to Child Link. However, the problem with that route is that the Door of Time isn't open, and so at the time, the only way to do Door of Time Skip again, to go back to Child, was to have Furrow's Wind placed initially after becoming adult, then completing Forest Temple and coming back. This route that finishes Forest Temple as a child is actually 4 minutes faster, so it was a very big improvement.
And the reason that we needed the Prelude was so that I could set Ferrari's Wind after opening up the Boss Rush menu that then appears once you go to Link's bed in his house.
Yeah. One of the features that was added to this game was a boss rush that allows you to refight bosses that you've already fought. And it's like a little time trial thing. It's not really a great mode, but when leaving that mode back into Link's house, it sets the entrance FFFF, which is the entrance value that I mentioned earlier that brings you to the title screen. So if you actually set Fur's Wind at that entrance, and if Jim was to just return to it right now, he would actually be on the title screen. An interesting effect of that is that if you cause a warp to happen that clears the current cutscene value, you will play on the title screen without the cutscene being there. So that's what Jim is going to try to attempt here.
Yeah, that's why we're beating the Deku Tree a second time. So, there's a specific frame I need to return Ferrari's Wind here for this to work. Unfortunately, I went just past it on that home buffer attempt.
That was one
late.
frame, right? Yeah, 1 frame late.
That's also why I saved when I got into the dungeon. Thankfully, it doesn't take very long to get to the Deku Tree Blue Warp. Yeah, so, you know, you're not safe with that warp just by getting the restricted items glitch. You also need to get that 1 frame that clears the cutscene value to make the warp work correctly.
Yeah, if you thought restricted items wrong warps were hard, this is on a whole other level.
Yeah, thankfully, it's the only one we ever have to do.
Yeah, and you only have to do it once.
All right, so try number 2. All right, excellent.
Nice.
So that time we got the frame with some home buffering. So now we wrong warped, so we canceled the cutscene of the title screen while appearing on the title screen. And this is going to result in Link voiding out 14 times in a row. Because when we go onto the title screen actually uses a completely different file to show Link like riding around on Epona. And that file has 14 hearts on it, right? It's sort of like a debug file that the developers would use for testing things.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly it. It has pretty much every item. It has 0 Skulltulas, 14 hearts, like Jim said. And then it also takes some items and flags from the file that you caused to activate the glitch. I think current magic count, maybe rupees as well. The Scarecrow song is copied over too. But basically, Jim here wants to be able to save and quit the game in order to play on the file normally. He has no access to the bottom screen, as you can see. And like I said earlier, that requires dying in order to bring up the save and quit menu. And the only way to die in Ocarina of Time is to land in some water with 0 hearts or touch the ground with 0 hearts. And because Jim is voiding here, the only way he can die is by having 0 hearts and touching a body of water. So that's why he's falling.
Yep. Thankfully, we don't actually have to keep track of how many times Link falls, because once he gets down to 2 hearts, we'll start hearing the heart beeping. But it always turns night before that happens, so...
It's a good time to drink some water, stay hydrated.
Yeah, it is. I think I'll drink some water right now.
I think I will too.
All right. Stay hydrated, everyone. So after this last void out here, when Link actually gets down to 0 hearts, I'll be able to roll while in midair to actually hit the water that's in front of Link here.
I almost forgot to give shout-outs to the Wayfaring Fox for finding this trick.
Yeah.
In fall of 2016. He's an unbelievable glitch hunter and tasser for 3D Zelda games, specifically the N64 and 3DS titles. This trick changed this game quite a lot, and it was something that this game could do while the original couldn't for like the longest time until the recent SRM developments in the original game. Now they can accomplish pretty much this exact thing.
Yeah, so on this file, because we basically have every item, it's not very hard to go and beat the rest of the dungeons now. The first dungeon that we will be tackling is the Water Temple, but I'm actually going to be placing Ferori's Wind here in the market to eventually get there. And then I will be taking some Redead damage from our friend over here, John Redead. To get down to half a heart, because we're going to get to the Water Temple with another very complicated death hole sequence.
I guess while Jim is going to Kakariko, I can talk more about the hybrid file that he's playing on right now. For whatever reason, there are no cutscenes cleared on this file except for Light Arrow cutscene. I would imagine they cleared Light Arrow cutscene because they didn't want it to trigger every time they opened the file in Temple of Time or something. So that's why you're seeing Jim watch the entrance to Kakariko cutscene again for the first time, even though he's already entered here before during this run. He also happens to have 8 small keys in every dungeon, even dungeons that don't have locked doors. So he's going to be taking advantage of that.
We have 8 Deku Tree small keys on this file. Alright, now it's time for the death hole sequence, though. Alright, so first I need to return Ferori's Wind while I enter into this grotto loading zone. This is going to pop me out, I believe with the coordinates of the grotto, but where I death hole wrong warp to, which is the market. This also is not the correct version of the market, but just ignore that. And then I will also use Ferori's Wind as I go into this other loading zone back here, which will bring me to some other place. And from this other place, if I hold a very precise control stick position, I will then fall into a loading zone, which brings us directly to Morpha's room.
That was very nicely done. So what happened there was a trick discovered by Hylie and Freddy about how long ago? A year and a half ago-ish?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Sounds about right. I don't remember exactly, but the trick is called Death Hole Void Warping and Reverse Death Hole Void Warping. Essentially what's going on with that final thing that happened in the market was that Jim did a Death Hole Wrong Warp into the Shadow Temple, but he had the room and coordinates of, I think it's the Kakariko entrance, right?
Yeah, the Kakariko entrance from Hyrule Field.
Yeah. If he was to just enter that loading zone with Death Hole alone, he would just enter Shadow Temple entrance. But because he had the room and the coordinates of somewhere else, he was like very high and slightly above the loading zone for entering the Shadow Temple boss room, which he navigated into. Because he entered the Shadow Temple boss room, entering that loading zone in Death Hole state brings you to Morpha. And so now he's doing the Morpha fight in Death Hole. He also placed Fur's Wind near the beginning of this fight. That Fur's Wind point actually went back into the entrance of Bongo's room.
Yeah, because when we did the Death Hole Void Warp to the Shadow Temple, we then touched the loading zone for Bongo's room, which Death Hole Wrong Warped us to Morpha's room. So the Ferrari's Wind point that we have set is actually set in Bongo's room, but because we returned to it while in Death Hole Wrong Warp mode, it just brings us to the Water Temple each time, or to Morpha's room, I should say. So we have now completed the Water Temple. But because we're stepping into this blue warp while in Death Hole, we're actually not going to get the Water Temple, or like the cutscene in the Chamber of Sages with the Water Temple. We still appear there, but there's no cutscenes. We're just going to use Ferrari's Wind to get back out. Oops.
Yeah, Raru happened to turn off all the lights.
Yeah. Also, a good side hop by me. Get damage forward, obviously intentional right there.
So right there, Jim placed Fur's Wind back in Bongo's room, and he's going to die to be able to leave Death Hole State.
Yeah, so this is going to take us back to the beginning of the Water Temple. Because save warping still takes you where it's supposed to, even in Death Hole. And then, because Ferrari's Wind is set in Bongo's room, we can just return to it, and welcome to the end of Shadow Temple.
This little chain of wrong warps to beat Morpha and then Bongo immediately after is so nice for the routing of this run and other runs of this game.
Yeah, both All Dungeons and MST benefit greatly from this like wrong warping chain setup. Alright, so I gotta equip some other items here. I have to not turn around though. What's going on? Hello. Okay. Bit weird right off the bat.
Getting punched by Bongo looked like it hurt just a little bit though.
Just a bit. But thankfully, with some well-timed slashes, we can beat Bongo in a single cycle.
Jim, you are playing this on a new 2DS XL, correct?
That is correct. This is being played on a new Nintendo 2DS XL with a capture board that has been soldered onto it so that we can get crisp quality video output without having to like aim a webcam at the system or something. Also, with this blue warp right here, I'm going to drink a blue potion while I enter the blue warp because I need to refill my magic and I want to refill my health too. And this is just a way to do that without really losing any time because it just happens while the blue warp is taking us away.
Also, the Shadow and Spirit Temple warps don't happen to play their cutscenes. I don't know if that's a property of the debug file or if that's because you already have the Shadow and Spirit medallions in your inventory. Some N64 players will probably know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's very convenient for the run though because we don't have to do Ferrari's Wind cutscene skips at those locations.
Yeah. And I guess to expand on that, this file does actually have all the medallions, but none of the spiritual stones. So the file that Jim is playing on right now doesn't actually have the Kokiri Emerald or the Zora Sapphire, even though he already beat those dungeons on the previous file he was playing on. The reason that this is still allowed for our run is because there are other flags that trigger upon beating those dungeons, and those flags carry over onto this file. And the flags I'm talking about specifically are the Sheikah Stone, like tips and hints or whatever they added into this game. That's the proof that Jim has those dungeons completed on this file. And even though he still has the medallions that for dungeons he didn't beat, he's still going to step into their blue warps in order to complete them.
Alright, so now on Death Mountain Trail, I'm going to do a small hest to get over to Dodongo's Cavern here. Dodongo's Cavern is also going to be a very short dungeon because we are Adult Link. And Adult Link pretty much crushes every child dungeon, just due to being bigger and having access to a wider variety of items. So in Dodongo's Cavern, we're going to introduce you guys to a very fun glitch called a hookshot jump, if you want to explain that as well, Aaron.
Yeah, so in this game, whenever Link's hookshot actor makes contact with a hookshotable surface and causes Link to launch towards it, Link gains a bunch of horizontal and vertical momentum. And something interesting you can do with that is if you play an animation on that specific frame where the two pieces of collision, I guess, make contact, you can cancel that animation but preserve all of Link's vertical momentum, and that causes you to fly very high into the sky. And no, that trick is not called a doom jump. That trick is called a hookshot jump. Do not let anyone else tell you otherwise. Because you have all that speed as well, Jim was able to clip through the slanted ceiling collision on the roof of Dodongo's Cavern and land into the loading zone behind the boss door.
Yeah, so for the King Dodongo fight, it's pretty trivial as Adult Link. We don't even have to throw the bombs into his mouth. We can just hold them above our head and he just eats them.
Yeah, for some reason, the hitbox of Link's arms is higher in this game. It allows you to grab ledges from lower distances, and I guess it also extends the hitbox of the bomb that you're carrying higher. So instead of having to throw explosives in, he just kind of scoops them up. The Dodongos like bombs.
So I did want to try to wrong warp out of this blue warp, but I was unfortunately 1 frame late with the restricted items. It's okay though, because it's just faster to watch the cutscene now than to like go back and try it again. And I didn't safety save anyway, so.
Yeah. What Jim was trying to go for there was a wrong warp into the first half of the Sun Song cutscene. He had for his win set in Kakariko Village from the Bazaar entrance, and that when that offset is applied to that entrance, it brings you to that Sun Song cutscene, and just skips this cutscene, of course, and allows you to continue from like normal.
Yeah, this cutscene doesn't quite look correct as Adult Link, though. You'll see when the camera pans around here that the Goron Ruby is not, in fact, above Link and Darunia, but it's actually going to be in the ground behind Link. If you look at the hilt of Link's sword after the camera stops, and then slowly pan your eyes upward, you'll see it just circling around in the ground on the upper part of the screen. Because why else would it, you know...
If you happen to be wearing iron boots for this cutscene as well, something funny will happen with Link's movement as well. Which is something you can do in this route if you want to.
Yeah, I went for the wrong warp though, so I didn't have time to equip the iron boots.
Basically what you're saying is that you don't like fun.
Yes, I do not like fun. I like saving time. Anyway, after this cutscene's over, I'm gonna go in and out of Death Mountain Trail, and I'm going to cast Troy's Wind here for the eventual credits warp that's going to happen. Because the only dungeons left to beat are Spirit Temple and Fire Temple. So since we have all the songs, we're going to play the Requiem of Spirit to very easily get to Spirit Temple.
Spirit Temple from the bottom isn't very bad in this run. Normally it's a little slow because you have to go out of your way to grab some keys, and of course the Mirror Shield, but Jim has 8 keys in this dungeon, just like every dungeon because of the debug file, and also the Mirror Shield. So it's not going to take nearly that long to go up to the top.
Thankfully I don't have to equip the Mirror Shield until we get to Twin Roma though. So in this first room I gotta do this trick called the Silver Block Skip. Basically, I have to get on top of that snake statue using the hover boots and then hover my way over to grab the very top of the silver block that's right there. The reason we can grab on top of that is because of the very small, like, lip that's next to the edge of the silver block right there. If that wasn't there, I do not believe it would be possible to grab on.
Jim got that warp song around the same time he got every other, pretty much every other item in his inventory when he accessed the debug file. I don't think it was mentioned earlier that the debug file also has all the songs. Might have been something I left out.
Yeah. And again, we just have 8 keys, so I don't think there are even 8 keys normally in Spirit Temple.
I don't remember exactly, but you better look out. You're losing these keys.
Oh yeah, can't believe we're already down to 5.
Got 5 left. It's this very annoying room coming up with the sliding walls, can be skipped with a hookshot jump. It's very nice, very fast.
Yep.
And also the boss key.
Yeah, thankfully these hookshot jumps are not as precise as the one in Dodongo's Cavern.
Yeah, the one in Dodongo's Cavern requires, I believe, max height in order to get. But
Pretty
these
close,
ones-
pretty close to max height.
Yeah, pretty close. But these ones don't require very much height at all.
Yeah, so in addition to all the warp songs, I don't remember if it was mentioned earlier, but we also have like all of the tunics, all the shields. We do have all of the sword slots filled, but in the 3rd sword slot, next to the Kokiri sword and the Master Sword, we have the Giant's Knife. We do not have the Bigoron sword. And that's important because the Giant's Knife, while it has the same power as the Bigoron sword, it breaks after 3 hits. So we're specifically saving it to use for the Twin Rova fight, where it'll be the most effective.
I guess it was also never really mentioned until now, but this game doesn't have power crowd stabbing, a trick used in the original Ocarina of Time and the Japanese version only of Majora's Mask that allows you to store the damage value of the last item, or I guess like last sword that you swung, and release that using crowd stabs. In this game, all crowd stabs do the same damage as the current weapon's, I guess like regular slash damage. So fights in this game versus this Knuckle or Stalfos, or I guess pretty much any other enemy with lots of hits, don't use crowd stabs.
Yeah, typically the only time we would use a crouch stab for something is if we like need to set up a trick or something.
I think I used to use crouch stabs versus a certain Lizalfos fight or something with like broken stick, but yeah, it's pretty much non-existent in this game for the most part. Similarly, in this game, the damage of Deku sticks was also nerfed. Deku stick jump slashes do the same damage as Deku stick swings, so it's always 2 units of damage, whereas a jump slash in the original game always does 4. I guess Grezzo realized that was kind of a stupid change, so in Majora's Mask 3D, they changed it back to normal, or just forgot to change it again, I have no idea.
Yeah, but in Majora's Mask 3D, they gave us the invisible Deku stick glitch.
Oh yeah, don't even get me started on that game. I honestly forgot that was a thing you can do.
Alright, so Twin Rova fight. Graphically, it looks nice, but unfortunately in speedrunning, it's kind of dull. At least until we get to like the 2nd phase. You kind of just
Unless
have to...
Unless you're Jemama 92,
Oh,
you get a
yeah.
quad.
This is not very good RNG. Yeah, so basically, the pattern that Twin Rova flies around in, which currently is not good, will like determine how fast they try to shoot you. I really don't know what they're doing right here.
You're just getting very unlucky.
Yeah.
There's also a small chance that Twin Rova or one of the witches can stay in the same spot and fire at you consecutive times, which runners call a double or triple, or in the one instance ever it's happened, reported, is a quad. I don't remember exactly the conditions that are required in order for that to occur. Fig02, who is a glitch hunter and runner of the original game, recently documented that. So if you're curious about that for whatever reason, you can check him out. He's been doing lots of decompilation stuff, just miscellaneous tidbits of knowledge. For example, did you know that if you play Song of Storms near a planted bean as a child, it will spring like out of the ground and spawn fairies for you?
Yeah, I remember watching that. Alright, so now that we've reached the second phase of the Twinrova fight, we can make her move to her new location a little bit quicker if we shoot the hook shot at her. And then right here, we're going to do 3 jump slashes on her with the Giant's Knife, which will then break it, but it does enough damage to kill her in a single cycle, which is very nice. Specifically to make that strategy work, I have to back up while I have the hover boots on, so that the jump slash doesn't get too close to Twinrova. Because if the jump slash is too close, then the Giant's Knife will hit Twinrova multiple times, and it'll break before we have a chance to do all 3 hits. So it's a little weird, but it thankfully ends up working out.
Ben Stevens was the runner who ended up figuring out the kind of back-walking strategy in order to keep the Giant's Knife for all the hits. Normally with something like Power Crouch Stabbing or Infinite Sword Glitch, you would be able to one-cycle the boss with just the Master Sword, but unfortunately we're not able to do that. So might as well take advantage of the Giant's Knife that we are just magically gifted through the debug file. And now with no cutscene to skip, it's just time to finish up the last dungeon.
So this just places us outside the Spirit Temple. And just like with the Rec Room of Spirit, we also have the Bolero of Fire, so we can transport ourselves right to the entrance of the Fire Temple. Another thing about this file is that we also have the boss key map and compass for every single dungeon. So we don't have to waste time trying to skip the boss key or get the Fire Temple boss key. We still have to watch this cutscene with Darunia, though, but we'll be following him right into the boss room, where he will unfortunately be gone by the time we get there.
Yeah, he was probably eaten before we were able to save him. So how long has it been since you activated the debug file? About 20 minutes, maybe slightly more?
Yeah, sounds about right.
It's pretty cool to see for this run that you're able to beat so many dungeons in such a short amount of time, just by having all of these items. It's pretty interesting because the run just essentially becomes how fast can you get the Prelude and Furrow's Wind and trigger the back in time glitch. Then you just have a sick dungeon rush to go to, just dungeon after dungeon after dungeon with pretty much no setup.
And included with all the items is 50 bomb chews that we can use to damage Volvagia.
I wish we had those on a new file.
Also, everyone please watch Volvagia's arms as she flies around here.
Yes,
if you
pay close attention
to her arms, they just don't make any sense. We'll get to see another good view of them when she dies, though. Alright, so I want to hit Volvagia with 9 shoes. For once, I did not get Troll Hole Volvagia. This is a special occasion.
One unfortunate thing that Volvagia can do is spawn in the hole that you're trying to throw bomb trees into. Like Jim said, there is a strategy, like a workaround, to account for that. It's just a little difficult and not ideal at all. You don't want that to happen. So luckily it didn't. You are one of the only people I know that it happens to so often.
Yeah, I've just got like bad luck lately.
Yeah.
Anyway, time is about to come up because we will be doing a credits warp to end off this category. Unfortunately, I was once again late with restricted items, and yeah, so I was too far. So that's why we do the safety save first. Time would have been coming up very quickly, but now I have to get back to the boss room. Thankfully, it doesn't take too long in Fire Temple also. Did I say Fire Temple or did I say File Temple?
I think you said fire. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Knows what the File Temple is.
That's what the debug file should be called.
Another very nice thing about this game is that you can actually put the hover boots and iron boots on a button.
Yeah, that's not something we mentioned at all because I guess it's just not used very much, but you can put on hover boots and iron boots at the same time as many other actions. So it takes absolutely 0 frames to put them on. It's very nice.
Well, unfortunately, I was just the slightest tidbit too far away from the warp for that one to work. All right. Oh, okay. I missed the frame that time, but I was still too far away from the warp. So I get to try again. Okay, time will be coming up here soon. After we finally got this. So just wait for the screen to turn white, and that is time right there.
Good job.
Thank you. So yeah, this will rung warp us to the credits sequence on Death Mountain Crater. It's very often that we'll rung warp to the credits from Fire Temple in most categories because it's the only adult dungeon that we can do a rung warp with at the end of the blue warp.
Yeah. So Ganon is not required in this run because reaching the credits is a valid end condition for this run. The same is true for Ocarina of Time as well. If you watched that run earlier, Danny beat the exact same thing. He rung warped to the credits from Fire Temple, just using a timer instead of Fora's Wind. That's just something the community's decided on. It's just a valid end condition. For us, we have like stronger reasoning, I suppose, because when you watch the credits and then you watch the Ocarina of Time 3D specific credits, you will unlock Master Quest. And so our community's definition of beating the game is just reaching the conditions that would unlock Master Quest on a save file that doesn't have it unlocked already. And luckily, rung warping to the credits achieves that.
Yeah, because we kind of think of like Master Quest being unlocked as the game like thinking that it's been beaten. Is like
You don't want to confuse the game and make them think it wasn't beaten.
Yeah, you do not want to confuse the game. Also, there's a weird sound that plays here in this scene.
All right. Well, do either of you have any last things to say before we get this whole thing wrapped up?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gymnast, for that run and for, being here in between doing the explanation. We are going to go on a raid shortly. Before we get to that, I did want to just remind everybody that Hotfix is funded in part thanks to your subscriptions. So please consider subscribing to support future broadcasts. So we're going to take it over to a quick ad, and on the other side of the ad, you will have a lovely person to hang out with for the rest of your evening. Thank you all. See you next month.